Hello my profane friends, it's another video, quite a long one I think, but this is going to cover gang stalking, drug dealing and pervert freakmasons. As you know, my studies are deep and they go deeper than any old rabbit hole. They go into the Masonic lair. Anyway, I was wearing this shirt, yeah. This is the t-shirt I had made. I won't put the sound on, but you can read it. And I was wearing this in a pub, and there was 3 Masons in there. And the Masons, one Mason dives off, goes to the toilet. Obviously, he has to report into his little master, yeah. But the interesting thing that is when he came back, yeah, I couldn't believe it. As they were talking about it, obviously, because I'm wearing this t-shirt and they've seen the symbolism on it, and he's gone there must be some bad freakmasons over in Great Yarmouth, yeah. So they knew. Anyway, when he come back, he went on the phone, yeah, and when he come back, he's going, yeah, he's a target. You know what I mean? And they were just blatantly talking about me being a Masonic target, you know. Yeah, you just can't beat it. But I've got other instances I'm now going to come through. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of gang stalking in this, you know, and the way they manipulate you, the profane, because that's what they call you, the profane. And I'm going to show you how they do it, you know. And they're a secret army living within your towns. Here's a Masonic army on the march now, look. I am singing, but this is them marching. These are your millionaires, your billionaires, your politicians, your policemen, anything within your community that's high ranking, you know, those that own shops, boxing clubs, pubs and clubs, rugby, you know, all of that, gyms, you know, these are the people that are running it, you know, and they're all hiding behind their little Masonic aprons, behind uniforms of authority, and they use them uniforms of authority to control you, which I'll show you in this video. Okay, but there's a Masonic army right there. Look at that. You know what I mean? Absolutely horrendous. But this is what you've got in every town and city. Now you imagine them, and they carry swords. I've shown you videos of that on the books on my Facebook. I'll show you in a minute a couple of videos on the Facebook and that. I'll go through it. But this is what you're dealing with. Thousands upon thousands of gang stalking drug dealers within Masonic lodges that control towns, and from them towns and them cities, they then control the states, and then them states control how a country should run, you see. But you, the profane, are isolated. You know, you can stand there. I think I see a quote on it. I might have put it in here, I don't know. But you sit there and you go, I am such alone, as a billion other people say the same thing, you know. Do you know what I mean? And they rely on that you are isolated. You know, they rely on that. They want that, because if you're thinking you're isolated, and this is the biggest program that makes you isolated. Do you know what I mean? Because you're watching this and you'll see it. I've just watched Alto Nights, I believe, where the 2 mafia dons, or whatever they were called, you know, they became enemies. But if you listen to the narrative, I think Robert De Niro played both parts. It's a new film anyway. But in there it shows you, he tells you how they, you know, they run the politicians, how they ran the police, how they, you know what I mean, how they bought everybody, yeah. And they go, you know, and he says it, how did a group of immigrants, yeah, Irish immigrants, no, it was Irish immigrants or Italian immigrants, whatever, it doesn't matter, successfully controlled such a vast area of, you know, towns and cities, blah blah blah, you know, an international crime syndicate control all of that. And they did it because they were all Freemasons. Yeah, if you look, it all comes from Italy, the P2 lodges, you know, they go back centuries and decades, and this is how they get away with it all the time. And all they do is just keep changing the name. You know what I mean? The name changes all the time. You know, first it's Stalin, then it's Hitler, then it's Saddam Hussein. You know what I mean? They're all Freemasons and they're all stage actors, but they do it within your town and city. This is the thing you've got to get through and around your head. Yeah, all these people they get you watching on this TV are all actors, and it's all staged events. Everything's staged. Everything you see, everything you hear is done by design. And from the people who are above, you know, the people with the heraldry. Anyway, this is what you're up against. Look, you see, this is not my meme, this is their meme, but that's what you're hiding. They hide that Masonic apron behind these uniforms, so when they want to shut a case down, and you'll see that again, you know, where there's different votes and things like that. I'll do that in the next video. Actually, I'll just do that now. I'll show it in the next video, where you've got a vote, they give you a vote, they go, oh, that was voted up for vote, you know, but the vote, depending on how many people there are, if there's 10 people, for instance, yeah, and you've got 8 Masons all on that same agenda, and they strong, you know, by peer pressure, get the other 2 to fold. Do you see what I mean? They've got the vote every time. That's why, you know, when it goes through Parliament, whether they should reveal whether they're Freemasons or not within our society, that's why they always win. And we go, no, you have to accept it because Parliament voted it. Do you know what I mean? But what you don't realise is Parliament is Freemasonry, and they just all hiding their Masonic aprons, you know. Like I said, the Blue Lodge, the Red Lodge, Labour, Tory, you know, it's different in America. I think it's like commune, whatever it bloody is, I don't know, but it's still the same, red and blue, you know. And amongst all that red and blue are standing Blue Lodge Masons and Red Lodge Masons, you know what I mean? And they're all ordered how to vote and how they should vote and how they go out into the community and encourage others to vote. Yeah, but it don't really matter anyway, because when the coach says, you know, when it's all decided, people believe, oh, I voted, my vote count. No, your vote didn't count for nothing, because they just tell you what they want, the narrative, whatever it is, and you believe it. You know, and that's what it is, and that's enforced by people with wearing doctors' uniforms and things like that. You know, like this here. Listen to this lady here.
I'm a mom of 2 in Fairfax County. This is my oldest, and my husband and I have a difficult decision to make this fall, as he is approaching preschool age, and we are faced with the decision of whether or not we are going to put our child in public school system, where Fairfax County has decided to move forward with instituting gender studies in elementary school. Despite having done a study group, a focus group in the community to see if parents even wanted this. And when parents said no, the board voted. Hi, I'm Kaylee Weichbrot. I'm a mom of 2 in Fairfax County.
Sorry about that, my profane friends. But this is what I mean. In the community, that doesn't matter what they ask you, whatever you say, it doesn't matter. That's like the shall we go to war? Everyone go, no, we don't want to go to war, but they still go to war anyway. They don't care what you say, because you're not their agenda. They got their own agenda, and they'll do whatever they want. And again, I'll show you how they use gangsters. Yeah, obviously I've hinted on it on a few of my videos in the past, whether you've seen them or not, where they use gangsters within the ranks to get what they want. You know, like when there's a picket line, you know, you got normal men on the picket line with families, and when they want to break up that picket line, they send in their gangsters with baseball bats, you know, and hard men, and then they pick out and isolate the strong on the picket lines, yeah, that hold it together, and they terrorize them or victimize them, so they then all go, oh, come on, you know what I mean, and they're bullied into going back into work or whatever, you know. And that's what's happened all the time. You know, they're just strong gangs within your towns and your cities, and they're using them criminals to get what they want on that agenda. You know, but anyway, listen to this. This is what you're trying to protect.
This is my oldest. put our child in public school system where Fairfax County has decided to move forward with instituting gender studies in elementary school. Despite having done a study group, a focus group in the community to see if parents even wanted this. And when parents said no, the board voted 16-0 and said we're moving forward anyways. This shows clearly that they see parents not as partners, but as an obstacle for their agenda. And I have a really hard time looking at him and going, here, I'm just going to give you over to people who do not want to partner with me in how you're going to be raised. School and education is a huge part of a child's life. And early childhood is supposed to be filled with exploration and creativity and fun, not debating issues that are for adults to handle. These kinds of topics should be introduced sensitively and by parents who are raising their children with their values, not with an ideology passed down from the top.
And that's what it's about, isn't it? And it doesn't matter what you say, what you do within your communities. That board, I've sat on the board. Do you know what I mean? I can't remember what it was about, but it was like, again, I'm sitting there on my own, yeah, and they've got I think it was 4 men and 3 women, possibly like that, yeah, sitting around this table, right, trying to make a decision on my family, right? And I said, well, how many of you are Freemasons? Do you know what I mean? That's the first thing that come out of my mouth straight away of anything, yeah? And you can see the men and a couple of the women, their faces like bang, and you know they're Freemasons because they don't expect that question, you know what I mean? They can't hide themselves, you see what I mean? And the faces on them was like, fuck. But the man who was the leader, yeah, again, I'm like up against all these authoritative uniforms. Obviously, they're wearing suits and, dressed as, well, we're the perfect people that are going to make a decision on your family, even though they're more than likely satanic and nonsense. Do you know what I mean? But again, they're sitting there and they get, and they're backing each other up. Do you know what I mean? And just working against me. And it didn't matter what I say anyway. Whatever I said, they're going to get what they wanted, and they did anyway. Do you know what I mean? But that was it. But what they turned around and said was that's not the issue here. There's nothing wrong. You know what I mean? That's not the issue. It doesn't matter who's whatever. You know what I mean? And just shut me down on it. Do you see what I mean? But it's a big issue in my life because you're gang stalking, drug dealing, perverts within my community, and I know you are. Do you know what I mean? And you are running a system and an agenda on my town, and the profane don't even know it. Do you know what I mean? You've done it in the bird's eye strike. I remember the bird's eye strike when they were running that. They were making the decision. I know they made the decisions on the dockers strikes as well. Things like that. There's lots of things I know. Which I've got in videos. I've done when I haven't put out yet. But there's lots of things they've done to manipulate this town and use their uniforms and their suits and whatever of authority, but hid behind that Masonic apron is hidden behind that. Do you know what I mean? And that's how they get us all the time. So when you get a vote, whether it's Parliament or anything, you are isolated against these people in authority. You've got 5 policemen sit there, and I'm it's like going into court. You know what I mean? You got 3 policemen that are corrupt. Yeah, they got an agenda to put you away because the fucking master wants that. Do you know what I mean? How can you gonna go up against that? You're just a profane person. You see what I mean? And you're relying on them to be honest when they're working for the drug lords and shit like that. Do you know what I mean? That's the difference. Do you see what I mean? And they shut you down all the time because you can't go up against their whatever they do and whatever they say. It's their agenda, and they're going to get away with it. They're going to do it. They do it now. They spray the skies. Do you know what I mean? They do everything they can to mess up your communities. They do it all the time, constantly. You know what I mean? You go, that's like you try and get the potholes stuffed in your road. No, they don't, because they know the potholes will make your car damage, what then keeps their people in business in the garages. Do you know what I mean? What they run. Again, another story, but... and I've got another street, like they pay all these bin men all this money, but you go around and see the crap laying about in the bins that are overflowing. They're now actually going to do a bin strike, yeah, which will be Masonic, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, they got profane men working in amongst them, but that'll all be run by the Freemasons and the criminals. Do you know what I mean? Again, they were doing that before in the miners' strike. Again, I've shown that in videos in past, and I can go into that. I'll go into that a little bit more in this maybe, and I'll show you, where the criminals are running the strikes and how it goes and how it doesn't go. Do you know what I mean? That's how crazy it is, But anyway, that's another story. But let's get through some of this. That's a little bit I just wanted to show you. At the start, and I always start at the bottom. Some of this is higgledy-piggledy. I wanted to give you this here, but before I get into that with this geezer here, I just want to show you this lady here. I don't know if I showed you her before, but she was an Eastern Star, and she's telling you how she manipulates the profane. Come on, where are you? Oh, and she apologizes for it within the community. And and the way she comes across, even though she's an Eastern Star, she's telling the truth and the facts, of how they have manipulated us through history and down the ages, her people and her generation before that, because that's what you're dealing with, Again, I'll show you. It's always the same. This is why I say it's always higgledy-piggledy, and it goes all over the place. Maybe I should just go and run it as it is. And here she is. There you go. Right, here we go. Listen.
Jamie, I'm a Mason, and I would like to acknowledge the sins that I have partaken in, and this includes my ancestral line. There have been quite a lot when you consider my ancestors have had a pretty big role to play in the running of society. There are things that are very obvious that we have done, particularly towards the minorities and towards coloured people and towards women. There are also things that you're not aware that we have done, and I would like to share these with you now. We have been dividing you all through the 3 industries that we control: news and media, law, and finance. News and media creates our reality, and this is what we discovered. And through news and media, we've been able to give our other 2 industries an incredible amount of importance. We've been able to instill them in your lives as things that you cannot live without. But our other 2 industries, law and finance, are industries that bring nothing but harm. We use law and finance to make people homeless. Every time we come into a new country, we use the law to remove the people who live there ability to live off the lands. We remove community, we divide them up, and then we rewrite their history. It's important for us to divide people up by taking children away from their families so that we can instill our history into the histories of the peoples whose culture we're destroying. And what we do is we tell these people that they had laws, that they were rapists and pedophiles, that they had corporal punishments, and we tell them these things because these are the things that we bring. So we make people believe that these horrible, awful things have always existed and are part of the human setting, so to speak. But that is just not the truth. The truth is humanity has a set of values. These values exist within all humans, and they are to be good, kind, seek understanding, and benefit the lives of others. We use finance and the law to stop people from being able to be good, kind, understanding, or benefit the lives of others. We are the cause of poor mental health. We are the cause of anxiety, depression, and suicide. It's because the practices that we use are psychologically abusive. We control society through narratives. Narratives is what controls society, nothing more. So we've used news and media to establish the law as a necessary part of life and finance as a necessary part of life. But without law and finance, what you would find is that everyone would have a home. Everyone would be safe and secure, and everyone would be free to make their own decisions about what they do with their life and what they do for work. We use our industries to destroy people's mental health, and that takes away their ability to function. In Australia, this is known as the welfare system. Once you enter the welfare system, you stay in the welfare system. We use the welfare system as food. Because none of our actions have benefit, we must feed off the self-worth of others. And so we have a hierarchy that removes self-worth from people. It removes self-worth from all people, but the people on the bottom of the hierarchy exist as food for the other society levels, for the working class and for the rich to feed.
I think she messed up there. The other society, do you know what I mean? What she's referring to is where I think most of the bodies go and who feeds them. Do you know what I mean? When we die, I think they give our bodies to them, you know, as a food source, or they're giving it back to us like Soylent Green. But what do I know, my profane friends? Do you know what I mean?
So if you're working class or if you're rich, you'll look down on people who are on the welfare system, and that's deliberate because by doing that you are able to get self-worth by taking theirs away from them. And when you have taken enough of someone's self-worth, they lose their ability to speak coherently and they lose their ability to function. They develop behavioural problems, and these behavioural problems justify the existence of the law. So we give people poor mental health and we take away people's health as insecurity so that they behave badly, and then we use that bad behaviour to justify the existence of the law. We say, you obviously need it, look at all these horrible things that are happening. Of course, we don't mention that we are the ones who are making those horrible things happen. These are the...
And that's why you'll find most people that are drug dealers at the top echelons, of course, belong to the lodge. I mean, look at the Cray twins, for instance. They were there. Most of them are, you know what I mean? You know, Kenny Noy, we could go through them all, you know. I've got videos on it anyway, like I said, you know. But most of them all belong to the lodge, and they're the ones causing the chaos. And if you know what's behind all that, like I said, then you're halfway there. You know, look at your Knights Templars. You know, who were the Knights Templars? You know, what is their line? What is the bloodline of the Knights Templars? We're all coming in my other videos.
Sins of my ancestral line, these are the sins of the Masons. Now, I have partaken in these and I have destroyed people's lives. I did so without awareness at the time, but I've become aware now, and I'm very, very sorry. I've not yet met a family member of mine who is aware of what they are doing, and that's particularly important. That's the problem, in fact. Because we partake in these actions without awareness, and that means that these actions stay within our subconscious, or the results of these actions stay in our subconscious, we are unable to stop what we are doing, change what we are doing, or exit the situation. That's what happens when you don't have awareness of it. The reason my family don't have awareness of what they're doing is because they have the values to be good, kind, understanding, and benefit the lives of others. These things are really important to them. And once they do become aware of how their actions are impacting the lives of others, the pain is so great that they remove themselves from existence. This has happened time and time again. So this is a biological problem that we've become trapped in. An inability to acknowledge what we are doing has removed our ability to change what we are doing. So I'm aware of what we are doing, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my family and say we need you to take authority away from us, please. To remove our authority, what you need to do is take back control of news and media. News and media creates our reality. And so if news and media were
The news and the media here within my town, Great Yarmouth, is the Great Yarmouth Mercury and certain radio stations. I'll say certain radio stations, but they also control the shops, the pubs and the clubs. You know what I mean? And like I said, if you do the research within your own towns and your own cities, you'll start to see a system that goes on within all towns and cities. And like I said, then it gets into the heraldry, which I'll show you in a minute, a video I did on heraldry, which I'll upload after this video anyway, because it's part of this. Like this video is basically on about how they get us to, do the Masonic rituals of the square, the circle, and the pyramid. Yeah, I'm going to show some more of that in this video anyway. But this is what I'm saying. This is what they get us to do within their society. And once you pick up on it, like I said, all in my estate here, there's all pyramids, and then you got the firmament, with the G on it and the 33 on either side, and all of this. If you know my videos. It's all around us. Their symbolism knows no bounds, and I show it in plenty of films as well. So I'll show you a little bit of that. But here she go, listen.
share stories saying that war is over, humanity has united, that everyone is getting a universal weekly income, those things would become reality. To this I would add the following phrase. A home is owned by living in it. You do not own the home of another person. You never have and you never will. These are the actions that remove the control that my family have had. We need you to take control back. We need you to remove our authority and free us from this hell that we are in alongside you. My family are not evil, but they have been performing evil for their entire existence. They have a lot of good to give, and I would really like to see them have a chance to do that. Before they can do that, they need to have the position that they are in taken away from them. They need a period of rest and recovery. They need kindness and understanding. It's not expected, but it is needed. So I'm Jamie and I'm a Mason. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything that we've done.
And you can pick her up. She's got a few videos in different places, but that's, like I said, there's other instances. Like there's another incident I'll give you what's happened this week. This is constant, like I said in my videos, if you in the past, like I said, what they do, they decimate your character, by assassinating it in the hope that someone else will attack you, or something will crop up where you'll attack someone else because you just lose it, and then you go to prison, and then they'll pay people to slash you, whatever, rape you, do anything they want to you. Do you know what I mean? Because they control the prison system. They are the prison system, the criminals, So, and again, you'd be surprised who runs that. Oh my God. Anyway, that's another story, my profane friends. But that's what they try to do. You see, the assassination, decimation of character. If I go here, look, I'll show you what I mean. Let me push that in there. Oh, right, where is it? So you go to my gang stalking section, yeah. The victim's stories there, but you've got the perp tools, yeah. And in there, look, murdered and killed by rumours, yeah. And this is how they kill people, yeah, in the community, right? And I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples, where they say you're a pervert, you're a nonce, you're a rapist, all these different things, and these stories get wilder and wilder, and people believe it. And then, before you know it, everyone's talking about it. I've got hundreds of recordings of how people are talking about me. I've used their own devices against them. But the funny thing is, the actual people that started all of this, the Freakmasons, I remember them back in the day when I sat in the pub. It was the tramways, drug dealers, of course, perverts, rapists, because all the research have come, and they're sleeping with their own children. Some of them are actually sleeping with their own pets. That's what I've got researched, the original gang stalkers I'm on about, and there's Goofy, there's Tummy Tuck, some of the people I name. Some are dead now, never going to face the justice. I hope they are on the other side, though, for all the drug dealing and all the killing they've done with their drugs. But that's another story, my profane friends. But this is what they do, and like I said, this post is not finished. Come back soon, yeah. But this shows you how they try and get you killed or assassinated on a rumor, yeah, because it's the people within the community that's gonna start on you. You know what I mean? They say, "Oh, you're a rapist," or "You're a nonce," or whatever, and they try and get other people to attack you. Same as what they do during wars. How they get, they'll take the towers down, and then we go, "Oh, attack them! They took the towers down." Do you see what I mean? They do the same. All of it. That's not just that. They've done that all. If you know where to look, you'll see they've done that all the way through history. I think they actually more than likely bombed Pearl Harbor themselves, yeah, or that was arranged to, or they allowed it or something. You know what I mean? Because then that started the war, and then that's when Freakmasonry was on the back end, then, and they were going to get kicked out of America or something. You know what I mean? So they started the war, conveniently. There's a few things like that, if you do the research on it, but that's what they do. They do character assassinations on you. There's a 15-minute video here that I want you to see.
And just wanted to record.
I'll let that one go at the end, okay, the 15-minute. But for now, let's carry on and I'll go through, yeah?
Useful to our nation, Ghana, excuse me, and fellow Ghanaians, and at the same time promote peace among our nation and this side of the world. 25 years ago, I was initiated into Freemasonry. There's no doubt that in joining a society or club, one cannot help but wonder what benefits and restrictions await one. In the case of Freemasonry, you are left to worryingly wonder more without knowing exactly what you're going to face, and with no one ready to tell you what you want to know. Whatever doubts or reservations might have crossed my mind, all I can say after the 25 years period is that I have no regrets from being a Freemason, experiencing what it unfolds, and in fact what it means to be called a Freemason. Looking forward to the future, I have two hopes. First, that the Grand Lodge will grow in stature in the coming years with dedicated brethren united in brotherly love.
Shut up. But this is the thing you're dealing with. Now, you've got to imagine it don't matter what society you're in, what country, yeah, in that country, within your community, within your town, within your state, within your cities, regardless of where you are, there's a hierarchy of heraldry, okay? And I'm on about royals, lords, dukes, earls, kings and queens, yeah? And they're Freakmasons, and they've been there for decades and centuries and eons, yeah? Okay, these people. And all they're done, yeah, and all they do is work together. And they keep you, the profane, enslaved without you knowing it. And so long as they keep on top, and all they got to do is, like I said, it's like a reset every 20 to 30 years. They keep you working, you keep you distracted. And so long as you're running around doing this, doing that, they don't care. But as soon as you start focusing on them or you're talking about them, that's when they're assassinating you, murdering you, or taking out any threat that's going to put their society down. But they work on isolation, in every town and city. Everyone is isolated, yeah, and they just pick you off with their gangs, which are drug lords. And I'll show you that again, how they do it in any town and in any city. Next.
A new report is calling Roblox an X-rated pedophile hellscape, exposing children to grooming, pornography, violent content, and abusive speech. Wait till you see what they found. Roblox has digital strip clubs, red light districts, sex parties. There are users on Roblox with usernames like I groom minors and rape tiny kids. The latest investigation included a test account signed up as a 13-year-old on Roblox. They typed adult into the search bar and found dozens of groups called adult studios with hundreds of thousands of members who are openly trading child sexual abuse material and soliciting sex acts from children. It gets worse. There's a game within Roblox called Guns Work at a Hospital with 1.6 million visits where users can go into a hospital and shoot patients. There's a game called Beat Up the Pregnant where you can beat and kill pregnant women. The XYZ rooms have 31 million visits and is where users go to simulate sex in bathrooms. There are school simulator games with horrible things tagged on the blackboards. There are 600 Diddy games, including Survive Diddy and Run from Diddy Simulator. There are over 12,000 erotic role-play accounts on Roblox, including rape and forceful sex fetishes. There is more, but I'll stop there. Roblox reports that 1 in 5 users are under 9 years old, and experts are saying it's probably more than that. Roblox claims to have the best in the world content moderation, but what's being found is that their moderators are largely outsourced to Asian call centers who are paid just $12 a day to review countless instances of child grooming and bullying and sexual encounters and worse. And these moderators aren't really allowed to ban users because it would be bad for their stock price. When asked if they would let their child play Roblox, the moderator said, "No, I wouldn't." And also shared, "I can't imagine why people are still using Roblox after all this kind of, shit." Roblox is another big tech firm that is moving fast and breaking things, and those things are our children. I cannot believe there's a game being targeted to children as young as 9 and younger that is putting them in situations like this. This company should be shut down. And on top of all of this, Roblox has been inflating metrics and lying to investors and advertisers about how many people are actually on its platform. So all of this is really bad for Roblox and really good for kids everywhere, because if you're a parent, I hope you will be going onto your child's devices and blocking the cesspool that is Roblox.
They'll never do anything about it. Do you know why? Because they're after your children. And like I said, you can look at your children now. I don't care if they're in prams, in the cots or whatever. By the time they get to 15, that reset has already come through and fruititious, yeah? And those who were the drug dealers, yeah? And now having their sons and their daughters, again, I can prove that, they're now going to deal the same drugs to your children and put them through a lifetime of being a cash machine, yeah, where their life is unhappy daily because they've got to have their fix. Do you see what I mean? Just so someone can buy a new car for their child or a new toy or go on a holiday or get a nice big spread of food on the table, This is what you're dealing with, buy the latest car, the R8 or the R whatever it is. You know what I mean? This is what you're dealing with, these people, and it's willed down every century, every decade, yeah, and it's held by families. Right. There's the firmament, and there's the heraldry. We stand in the north, the hated profane stand in the north. I don't know what I got the feeling. Move on.
According to ABC, the average woman puts 168.
Yeah, see that? I hide my Masonic apron. I also hide the Masonic agenda. And this is what they do. They put their aprons on under their suits, and you just don't know it. Do you know what I mean? And you look to see who all the MPs are, who your prime ministers are, you know, like Winston Churchill, the UKIP, you know. Again, I'm going to get into a bit of that, you know. People going, oh, vote UKIP, vote. It's all bullshit. It's all run by Freakmasons. Do you know what I mean? And so long as they keep you running around segregated and separate and all the rest of it, you know, Tommy Robinson, another useless twat, you know, who's in jail, you know, he's just a cokehead, you know, he look at his security, who's looking after him, again, criminals, do you know what I mean? And that's what's manipulating everything all the time.
To this day, many people will look at Freemasonry and still believe that it's an upstanding organization and it's a brotherhood and many positive things. While I think that sometimes that may be true, at the highest echelons of Freemasonry is where the most corrupt are. And much like the Eye of Horus symbolism and the one-eye symbolism that we've seen previously, we also have something called the vow of silence. It's a gesture used in Freemasonry for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's to remind the other Freemasons that the secrets of the secret society should never come out. And of course, that's under penalty of death, as prescribed in the Freemason Handbook. Very strange.
And it ain't just the finger that holds there, it can be the little finger. Do you know what I mean? There's all different types of fingers you hold to your mouth, and the particular way you do it that gives you your ranking with the shh. You know, and again, I've shown you in various videos their shush god on the front of the Masonic altar. You know, I'm not going to get into it now because it gets too long. You know, you got to look at my videos. There's enough in my videos to show you what runs your towns, what runs your cities, who's corrupt and who ain't. Like this man here, a Freemason. You see, a Freemason will never, ever make Britain great, ever. They are the corruption within our communities. Yeah, this is what this is their agenda. You know, do you think, you know, all these indigenous species that have come here? Yeah, do you think that was done by design and on purpose, or do you think it was an accident? No, it was done on purpose and by design. Because again, when you're all focused on these people they've allowed in, okay, because it puts them in the background. You're not focused on them. Do you see what I mean? You're more worried about that, you know, and the people who have done it, again, in them communities, yeah, the ones who have made that shift to make people move, yeah, are the Freakmasons. You know, you can go, oh, they're all from, I'm trying to think where they come from, you know, all the different people that have come in from all different countries, they're all got Freakmasons that have encouraged that and made that happen. Do you see what I mean? Because it benefits them. You know what I mean? It doesn't benefit anyone else. It benefits them. Yeah, they're not poor. They're not living bad. You go to any hotel owned by Freakmasons and you see how many indigenous species are in there. They're in because they get housed out and they get, you know, the criminals fight them so they don't go back there. Do you see what I mean? And they're ousted out of their apartments and all the rest of it. Again, I forgot what I'll put this picture in here for now. Oh, this is another Freakmason. I forgot what I put him in there for now. Yeah, this is how they used to. This is how they used to crucify people. People used to, you know, because you know, my Triple X videos. If you don't, you'll have to go on my YouTube and look it up. But this is how they used to actually crucify people. Okay, on the X, right? So when you see the double X, what do you get? The square and the calm piss. When you get the triple X, yeah, 3 X's, XXX, which is 10, and you exclude the noughts and the 3 ones make 3, yeah? But when Jesus, so you had Jesus on the middle X, and then 2 ruffians to the left and to the right, yeah? So that's the triple X, yeah? And the triple X, what does it stand for? Shh, you see? But that's another story, my profane friends. But that's what that is. Look, you see the Masonic apron, look? I can't scroll in on that, sorry. But can you see the Masonic apron on there, look? You see that Masonic apron on him, look? Just the guy to the right here. Look at the Masonic apron. You see him? Can you see it? But anyway, that's another story, my profane friends. Here we go, look. When you put two of these together, look. See? Square and calm piss. That's what it is. It's always the square and the calm piss. That's what two Union Jacks are. You see? It's the red and blue lodges, okay, that make up the Union Jack, and it's everywhere. Here we have two X's here, look, you see? The square and the calm piss. Oh yeah, St. Andrew Lodge. You see the St. Andrew's Lodge? You can see it again, look. The X for 10. But again, as you can see, the X, right, has a great value in Freemasonry. It's the 5 points, yeah? The 5 points. Let me show you what the 5 points are in Freemasonry. This way, I see it. So if I do it in red, these are the 5 points, okay? What makes the... So you've got 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point, 5 points, yeah? What are 5 points? It's 2, then 3, and then 2. 2, 3, 2. What does 2, 3, 2 make? Go on, you know. Come on, tell me. I'll show you. 2, 3, 2 makes the Masonic cube, my profane friends, you see? The Masonic cube, yeah? The cube of Saturn. And that's why you've got the 5 points in Freemasonry, because it makes the Masonic cube of Saturn, you see? See, the 5 points. 1 point, 2 point, 3, 2. So it's 2, 3, 2, you see? 2, 3, 2. Now remember, when it's 2, 3, 2, what also makes 2, 3, 2? Remember when you got the 9 points, yeah? Which they never tell you about, and that's when you go like this. Dum, boom, boom. Which then gives you the, which we're not allowed to talk about. But remember, that is your 2, 3, 2. I've got it backwards, actually. I should have done it the other way, but there you go. But that's why the 5 points are important in Freemasonry, yeah? Because 2, 3, 2 makes the 5 points. The 5 points makes the X. Okay? Right, discard. Again, you can see the heraldry here, look, of the Knights Templar above. And cleverly, if you look in the background, look, you've got a point within a circle, you see? Okay, and you'll see on telly most shields from the Vikings, what were also Freemasons, yeah, because they come from a lodge. That's where they had their meetings, remember? The lodge, the hearth, the heart of the fire, you see? And that's what it's about, all the communities, you see? And all leaders, regardless of what it is, they were the strongest and the toughest. And that's what there is within your communities now. And sadly, they're all your drug lords, do you know what I mean? But that's another story, you know, and they control your doors and your clubs. Again, you can see the 5 points here, or the X. But when you got the triple X, you see, these are the ones that murdered Jesus, because he went into the temple, you see, in the Masonic temple, where the taxation men were, yeah, because that's what they do here, still in every town and city. They tax all your money and take you, the greedy, you know, they're the merchants and all the rest of it. And he went up and bashed them and whipped them. Do you see what I mean? So they crucified him for it. And who did they release? Barbaras, the Freemason. You see, give us Barbaras. We want our crime, you know, we want our crime syndicate back, you know, our main man. So give us Barbaras and condemn Jesus. But there you go again. And again, look, you'll see how they crucify him on the X, not on the cross, but on an X. Okay? Again, see, that's all through history, the X. Yeah? All right? Again, the X, you see? This is how they crucified people, on an X, not on a cross. See? And what do you get when you got 3? Shh. And it's 666, my profane friends. You need to look at my other videos for that. But again, look. Oh, you can't really see it clear, but it don't matter anyway. But again, here it is, look, the X, okay? And if you look on the floor, look, can you see it there? The square and the calm piss? Let me show you. Because they run it all. It's all their game. It's nothing to do with us, you. It's to do with them. It's always to do with them. See the square within the square, look? Let me come down a bit so it ain't so fit, so it ain't so bad. And there's your square and calm piss, look, you see? Square, calm piss is right there. Obviously it's a bad square and calm piss. I need to thin the line a bit. But that's your square hidden in plain right. Your square and compass is right there. You see? There's symbolism. You can see the square within the square, and it's 4 square. And again, look, it's 5 square. You've got 1, 2, yeah? And then 3 down here, and then 2 there. So what is that? 2, 3, 2. What's 2, 3, 2? The Masonic cube of Saturn, you see? And it has, you know, right deep meanings, all of it. It's not just a simple case of, you know, oh, it's that and that's the end of it. No, it's not. You know, there's deeper meanings to it. But again, you can see the cross or the X, yeah, within the church, because that's how they used to do it back in the day. And again, you can see the heraldry on the 4 corners here, yeah, and the cross behind him, and he's doing the Bummerfet. St. Andrew's doing the Bummerfet fingers. Do you know what I mean? Again, look, crucified St. Andrew's. I forget what lodge this is, but again, it's the heraldry, yeah, because it all runs on heraldry. I'll show you the video I did the other day on it. Again, look, the same thing. I forgot the bloody lodge name. But this is how they used to crucify people. Yeah, not on a cross. They used to crucify them on an X. That's why you'll always see triple X. And I'll show you lots of examples of that in my videos, as you know, yeah. Here's 6 facts about St. Andrew the Apostle, yeah. Oh, I can't get it on. Look, he was crucified like Christ, but in the pattern of an X, which is known as the St. Andrew's cross. You see? He was Jesus's first disciple. So why would they crucify him on an X and Jesus on a cross? You see what I mean? It didn't. They done them all on a cross, on an X. Yeah? You know what I mean? Like I said, it's all made up by these people. Look at these, look. This is what you're up against. Freak target. See him knighting him, look. See the swords they got? Look at the hand grip, look. That's the grip, yeah? This is what you got to do. And if you don't know these grips and what they're doing, yeah, this is how they distinguish you between you and them. These people can stand with you in your clothes, yeah? Look at the swords. See, it's an army. See? But they don't want you knowing that. You know, I've shown you in my books anyway, in my videos, how big this army is. So what would distinguish... So if you're standing there as a profane person, yeah, and you're not involved in this, I'm presuming most people watching my video are profane. How many of these people here will be your friend? You'll be the first one to have to storm the bunker. These will be your captains and lords, your colonels and all the rest of it. All of these. None of these will go to war. They're all safe. You, the profane family men, you'll do all the fighting for these people. Do you know what I mean? Oh, they'll send a few of the idiots. Do you know what I mean? The ring of protection. They'll send them. Oh, we'll make you a captain because you're a Freemason. Here's an handshake, even though he's a friggin' mug. Yeah, that's working for these cowards. Do you know what I mean? That'll never go to war. But that's what you're up against.
Manipulation is when they blame you for your reaction to their toxic behavior, but never discuss their disrespect that triggered you.
And that's what it's about, innit? I'll give you another story, yeah? I'm in the gym, and there's a geezer going round about, you know, he's slagged me off loads of times, yeah? And every time I catch him, he blanks me or whatever, or I blank him. I just don't speak to him, but he then speaks to me. Do you know what I mean? Why? I don't fucking know. I don't care if he speaks to me or not. You know what I mean? He's not, but he's a Freemason, and I wear my shirt. Wait there, sorry, I got on my throat. Sorry, I got a bit of a throat fucking thing going on. Bloody hell. Anyway, so I'm in the gym, and this time I caught him. He's dived out of the thing. He's gone, quick, here he is. Shh. And there's 4 people there, yeah? And they're all discussing me. And it's like, fucking hell, come on. How obvious can you get, And it just changes the whole dynamics of the gym and the way the atmosphere is, yeah? Just because of this Freemason, Anyway, I catch him. And I'm walking past, and I'm saying, oh, look at this. And I'm shouting, out loud as I can. Calling him an arsehole and this, that, and the other. He's talking, whatever. I can't remember what I was saying exactly. I just forgot. But, and then 2 of the people don't go in there no more because they got caught, and I said, and I've explained, what I do. I give them my leaflet, I say there's gang stalking, drug dealing perverts, slagging me off and all this sort of thing, talking about drugs and, what the Freemasons do and all the rest of it. And, I could say more, but I won't. But anyway, you can have a good idea what I said about it. But it's changed the whole dynamics of the gym, you see. And that's what they do. They go around. Like I said, there's other people in there saying, oh, just smack him in the mouth, try to make me feel uncomfortable, all these sort of little tactics they do. The other day, I'm in the town. This is another classic. I'm in the town, and someone's gone, pedo. I presume it was at me anyway. And I've gone, perv alert. But again, you see, that's one of them instances where it can escalate. There was like 6 of them, more than likely armed. They were drug dealers anyway. Little underlings of the fucking big boys, do you know what I mean? But doing the dirty work, you know what I mean? Because like I said, my face has been passed around and everyone's whispering and all of that shit, you know what I mean? I know what, like I said, they assassinate your character so you can get murdered by, by rumour, killed by rumour, you know what I mean? Anyway, that's another story, but that's the sort of thing I get into all the time. These, and there's not just like once, it's like multiple times a week that I get into these things, yeah, where potentially it could go from 0 to like 100, and someone could either get seriously hurt or I could get murdered. Do you know what I mean? That's how sort of serious that gets, But the Freemasons have created that, within my town. Because they're perverts, even though they're rapists, like I said, they're shagging their own dogs. I can prove all of that as well anyway. Like I said, people love to talk and they can't help themselves, but I've used their own weapons against them, that's just another incident. He's gone pedo, and there's 6 of them. Do you know what I mean? What am I going to do? So what am I supposed to do? Fight 6 people? I could have more than likely smacked them all anyway, but you don't know who's carrying a knife. Do you see what I mean? And like I said, there was a fight. I can't remember. It was up near the police station. There was 2 people fighting about a car parking space. But the old guy got killed anyway. And there's other fights like within the town. Like Scotty, a friend of mine, gone back years. He got murdered. On thing. They were calling him a rapist. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then he got stabbed, you know what I mean? Because obviously he confronted the 2 people, and he got stabbed. But they went away. Do you know what I mean? 2 lives wrecked there, and Scotty lost his life. So it was 3 lives were lost that day because of people spreading rumours that he was a rapist. Do you see what I mean? And that's what they do. They get you, and the people that did it weren't the original, instigators of that rumour. Do you see what I mean? But they've set up with their feet while the 2 men have gone to prison for it, and Scotty went to his grave. Do you know what I mean? Three, you could say 3 innocent people were killed that day by rumour mongers that were spreading rumours. Do you see what I mean? That have all got away with murder. Do you know what I mean? Crazy. But 2 people went away for murder, but shouldn't have done. Do you know what I mean? Because if them original people that were calling Scotty a rapist wouldn't have done that, that wouldn't have happened. Do you know what I mean? But that's just another story. I've got that in videos anyway. But other instances, it just goes on and on and on. I could go all day long on it. When people make slight comments, and things. I've got it. I've got it all. Oh, I won't go in there. Again, that's all in videos. I can't. I'm just trying to give you instances. Where I'm always on that. I suppose it's fight or flight thing. And shit like that. You know what I mean? What they've created. Where people will make comments and you're fucking like, or they're imitating, like trying to blow their face off, shoot themselves and things like that, and I know what goes on, you know what I mean, what they say, I've got it all that, like I said, people love to talk and it's a good thing for me. But that's what it is, that's what it's about, and and I had that T-shirt made up, and I took it to the gym and that. But like I said, these two people, they're lovely people. I didn't know, I didn't know them from Adam, but they don't come in the gym no more. Do you know what I mean? Because of that, Freakmasons changed that dynamics of that. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, there's other people there. What says they, like, what was that one? I can't remember now. That was another one. Oh yeah, I was in the pub. Yeah, I'm in the pub. I'm just like having my normal coffee and that, and this guy come in. There's 7 or 8 of them. Yeah, 7 or 8 of them, and he going, "Oh, there's a wrong 'un in the pub." As he's walked past me. Now you can say that, they can all fucking, I don't give a fuck. You're a mug. You know what I mean? You've done it with 8 people. You know what I mean? I can't take on 8 people. It's not worth the hassle. Like I said, I go to jail for it, and they'd love me to be in jail, because then it doesn't take a lot to pay for someone to slash my face or throw a bucket of, sugar water in my face, you know what I mean, because they control the jails. But that's another story. But, then, so that was that, and I think you fucking can't, rage, what on the fucking go for it, like, but I knew pointless. Do you know what I mean? Because that helps the people that would sit there then with their feet up that are not taking the responsibility of that. Do you know what I mean? And the twat who said it, the fucking village idiot, doesn't know what's going on anyway. He's just following like another rumor from someone else. Anyone's obliged to come and step up and let's get the rumors, sorted. We'll talk about who's a pervert, who's a rapist, who's a nonce, who's this, who's that. We'll do it on the live, yeah. And then when we're done that, when we're done, we can talk about the gang stalking and everything like that, yeah. And you've got to bring your proof. I mean, there's got to be victims somewhere. Like, we'll bring all the children that I've raped that should be old now. If we're talking years ago, because it's been going on years anyway, so they should be adults now. We can bring all them victims forward. We can bring the police witnesses. We can get the social services witnesses, all the reports, what they've done on me for being a nonce, a pervert, or a rapist, yeah. Because I know, like, in the last, say, 20 to 30 years, right, every person I've slept with, I've tape recorded. Do you know what I mean? Because I know what these Freakmasons do, and I know they have Eastern stars and girls can accuse you of rape. So I've always had it consensual, and I've always had it video, like recorded on a tape recorder. So if it ever did, they got me with a girl, and she went, "Oh, he's raped me." I've always got that evidence to go, "No, I fucking didn't." Press play, and I'm playing. No, he fucking didn't. Do you know what I mean? So anyone I sleep with, I always make sure it's confirmed that they're sleeping with me. Do you know what I mean? That's how fucking paranoid I am about freaktards. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I can go into more stories of that as well, but that's another story. But so there's no one I've raped. Do you know what I mean? There's no way, where are the victims? Where's the report? Where's the crime? We got a crime number here, Do you know what I mean? Again, let's bring some mums and dads forward, some stepdads maybe, let's get some stepdads in them, anything. It doesn't matter who it is, Again, I've talked about that. You sleep with someone's daughter and they're part of the ritual of the Masonic club. Yeah, because you can find out they think she's the Queen of Sheba or whatever, and you offend their god or their goddess because she's part of the lodge light, or whatever. So the dad, if you're a profane person and a dad or a mum doesn't really like you, yeah, it might not be because you as a person, it might be because you're sleeping with the Queen of Ra, or Queen of Sheba or something that belongs to the lodge. Do you see what I mean? And you're defiling their goddess. Do you see what I mean? And that's why they come after you, because you're defiling the goddess. Do you know what I mean? So you got to be careful. Or it's the wife or the husband or whoever, I can't figure it out. You know what I mean? It's their girlfriend. Their daughter, his daughter is his girlfriend. Do you know what I mean? So you're sleeping with his girlfriend, even though it's his daughter. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. Yeah. So, because he'll be having sexual relations with his daughter, and because of that, he'll be jealous over you sleeping with his daughter and the Queen of Sheba or whoever I can't remember who it is, in the lodge, who they say, oh, that's my, that's my, that's our goddess. You've just defiled her by sleeping with her. Do you know what I mean? And then they come after you for that reason, but that's another story. But anyway, that's some of the things I go through, like on a weekly, daily basis. They go, here come the wrong, and here come this, here come that. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking, fucking hell, mate, you're the one who's sleeping with your kids. Do you know what I mean? You're the one who's the rapist. You're the nonce. You're the one, dealing drugs to the kids. Do you know what I mean? And getting them to hold knives up to pregnant women, saying, where's the drugs? You're the one threatening family mums and dads. If the kid can't pay, you're extortioning the money out of the parents to pay the drug habit that the boys got, because you're going to fucking do them over. Fuck off. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, I'll get angry. I was better cool down on it. But that's what you're dealing with. Perverts, that think they're Queen of Sheba, their daughter, who they're having sexual relations with since an early age. If you go out with her, they don't like you because you're gone as a person. They don't like you because you're defiling their goddess. You know what I mean? Or their girlfriend. You know what I mean? I had one guy, he come up. I did actually have a guy come up, and he'll know who I'm on about, and they followed me about, trackers on my bike and shit. I got that anyway, that's another story. But he's come up to me, and he's shouting and screaming on, and the first thing that came out of my mouth, was, oh, you're the one been sleeping with your daughter then, is it? Obviously, I've tape recorded her, and I've tape recorded him. There's nothing here. I don't have no recordings here, so there's nothing in my house for the police, because I know, again, the Masonic police would kick your door in, take all the shit, and then you don't see it anymore. Do you see what I mean? Or it gets lost by the Masonic Brotherhood that hide behind the Masonic fucking police uniform. Do you know what I mean? So there's nothing here. But again, I recall him, as soon as I said that, his face dropped. He was like, oh, and he couldn't be nicer to me than because he knew I'd had him. And then I even got the messages that he sent to his girlfriend, his daughter, saying, oh, why did he's recorded you, did you know that, boom, boom, boom. And I've got them, I even got that, do you know what I mean, recorded and messaged and all the fucking shit, where he's trying to cover his backtrack and go, oh, you shouldn't have said nothing to him and all this sort of shit. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, oh yeah, man. And I'm rubbing my hands like fuck. Do you know what I mean? But when you catch them out, they don't fucking like it. Do you know what I mean? And like I said, things over the last, I've just used their own tools against them, basically, and that's what I'll continue to do till they murder me. If I die or disappear, it's down to the Freakmasons in this town. You know what I mean? No one else. The Freaktard Masonic Lodge in Great Yarmouth are murdering scum anyway. But that's another story. So yeah, there you go. Let me carry on. I'll give you some more stories, like I say, what I go through, like I said, but that's just a couple of stories, like I said, they go, I was a wrong in here, do you know what I mean? But when the guy come into the gym, I went, because that's, sorry, my throat again. So he's with his 7 or 8 mates, do you know what I mean? And he's saying that you're wrong, and then I'm thinking, yeah, you fucking wank. That's like when I went back, when they went after them other ones that were on the table who hooked his finger. I went back, they'd all gone by then. But that was I was glad they went, because that had got messy, do you know what I mean? And that's the thing, I live with that all the time, and it was just a bad day that something had happened, and I'd have had him, do you know what I mean? But that's another story. But anyway. So I'm in the gym, and the guy come walking in the gym. You know what I mean? I've gone pervert alert, do you know what I mean? the person who knows about my stalking and all of that sort of thing knew about what was going on, sort of thing, but he never said anything. Do you know what I mean? He's like totally, he knew what I was saying, what I was doing, but he didn't say nothing because he's on his own. Do you see what I mean? And that's the thing with these people. When they're on their own, they do nothing. Like I said, they've been across, like, down the high street, there's one staring at me, standing there just staring and staring, being aggressive, and like that flight fight, or I'm supposed to look scared or something. So I just walked over, fucking walked right past him, looking at him. Do you know what I mean? And then when I got across to the other side, his little worshipful master Mason fucking friend went, "Yeah, well done, brother," and more than likely took him back to the lodge, give him a bum stretch, and then handed him a badge for being brave enough to stare me out in the high street. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, what the fuck, you dickhead? Do you know what I mean? But, he's chuffed, and he, that, like, the worshipful master was thinking how great that was. You're just all the, perverts, and I'm talking years and years of gang stalking and perversion by these people. You know what I mean? But none of them are going to step up because they're all fucking gangsters. They're all drug dealers. They're all businessmen, all respectable, but they're the ones raping their kids. Do you know what I mean? Raping other people's kids. Do you know what I mean? Shagging their own dogs. That's what I've got, on my fucking thing. And it's not, I'm just looking for my glasses and I found them. And that's what I mean, But I'll talk a bit more about, the gang stalking and the incidents as I've gone, as I go.
Hollywood party is that this is what it means to sell your soul to the devil. So he goes from room to room, and he gets to a room where everyone's waiting in line, and there's a bookshelf behind him with all the...
And this is what I mean. This is what happens when you're profane, yeah? And this is how they find out you're profane, yeah? Because you go to any lodge and you've got to know, like, the 3 knocks. You got to know where the key is to the lodge. Where's the key? It's under the slab, a few fucking feet away from the lodge. Blah blah blah. All these sayings you've got to know. Like I said in my videos, I say a lot about it. Like, for instance, when they hold each other in a cuddle, yeah, like a Gaylord cuddle, what they do. If you're facing the back, you wouldn't see it. But what they do, when the back's turned away from you, the Mason will draw a circle on that back, yeah, on that person's back. That person then knows the rank from the next point that he gives. You see, so he'll do a circle and put a point in it. That'll give a rank, you see. Or he'll do an L, which is the square, and then they'll put a point on that L. That'll give another rank, you see. Or it'll be a pyramid. It'll draw something on that person's back, but that'll indicate he's a Freemason. You know what I mean? But the profane person won't see it or know it or even understand it. If you shake a hand and I get your wrist and do three presses on your wrist in the handshake, no one else is seeing it. Do you know what I mean? And this is what it is. And ain't just that, it's the sayings. Like I said, a Boaz, can you tie a bow? And then he go, as well as any man can. Do you see what I mean? And then, like I said, is that your dog there? What's his name? Hiram. Do you know what I mean? What number do you live at? What house? If I see your dog, you know what I mean? How will I recognise it? Oh, it'll have a blue collar. The blue collar of Freemason. What number house are you? Number 33. Shit like that. All them recognition things. That separates you from Freemasonry within your society. Whether you are going to be treated fairly or not, whether that's in court, by the police, by social services, you see what I mean? And that's the thing. So anyone who's with authority or in a uniform, the first thing that should come out of your mouth is, "Are you a freaktard?" You know what I mean? But listen to this. This is how they find you out if you're profane.
Holy books, the Bible, the Quran, the Tao, the Torah, you name it. And when you get to the front of the line, he says, "Which one is yours?" And they would choose which holy book was theirs, meaning like, what religion were you brought up in, right? And then he makes you place your hand on the book with some kind of metal object over it, and you have to say a statement that says, like, "I bow to no one, I alone am my own God, I bow to myself." Like a super service to self, like, slogan. Damn. And then you get permitted entry into the last room, and he was like, "I'm not doing this. This is evil. I'm out." So he gets to the front of the line, and he's like, "Hey man, I don't feel comfortable with this. Can I cop out? I'm not doing this." And the guy leans in and is like, sure, man, just go to the back of the room and take your mask off and somebody will come get you. So he does that, and then the people that come to get him start shouting and pointing him out, and they say, the price was not paid, let the profane be removed, or something like that. The price was not paid, let the profane be removed. And everyone starts chanting it, and they carry him out of the thing. So he's outside waiting for they told him, like, somebody's going to come to pick you up and drive you back home. And so while he's waiting for his, like, Uber ride or whatever for like 10 minutes. He looks in, he walks around to the side of the house and looks through a window, and he sees the last room that his friend went into, and it's all these cameras set up, and a bunch of people were wearing masks, and they would put each person in the center, and he doesn't say what they were doing, but he said basically the most heinous act you can imagine was happening, and they were filming it. And so I imagine that probably means they were doing unspeakable things to children, or a child, right? And they're filming it. So now they have dirt on you, right? And the story goes on, and he talks to his friend the next day. His friend's like pretending like everything's cool, and he tells him, like, bro, I saw what happened. Like, I saw what they made you do in that room. And his friend kind of freaks out on him and is like, don't tell anybody. Like, they could blackmail me with that. Like, you can't tell anyone what you saw.
And that's what it is. That bit of metal on the Bible was the square and the calm piss. You see what I mean? And that's what these are the rituals you go through. You know, like I said, they're not just in your town and cities. You know, they can be out in the countryside, in the big mansas. You know, and they got special doors built into the houses what you don't even see. Yeah, and and then you can go underground, and you think, like I said, you're blindfolded on some of these rituals. Yeah, you're blindfolded to the place, so you don't know where it is. Okay. Right, it's a total cop-out, blacked-out van, and that'll be, you wouldn't hear nothing. You can't hear nothing. The van's, completely obliterated, so you can't hear, see, or anything. You're deprivated from that, basically, smell, taste, and sound, yeah? Then you'll drive into the garage, you'll get out of the van, they'll lead you to wherever they need to lead you. You'll think you're getting a lift, or you're going into a lift. These can all be simulated to dull your senses, but in the end anyway, you come out into a room, and there'll be other people from all around the country that are on that same ritualistic thing with you, yeah. And then obviously you've been tested many times, but as it get into the stage of the seriousness of it, each town and city go, yeah, we've got two people here, we can get into the brotherhood here, like, what I mean? And they bring them all together, what I mean, into this one place, like Sandringham, or, Sandringham Hall, any of these places, yeah, or a castle, yeah, and they're all ready to go, rock and roll. They've been doing it for centuries and decades. It's already there and built and ready. And then they go through each room, and in each room they have to do something, whatever. And then that's how it escalates into, where they kill a child or abuse a child or whatever. And then they got them on the blackmail end, do you know what I mean? And then, that's people within the army, the navy, the air force, MPs, all of that. And that's what it is. It sews it right up, And then at the end of it, the ritual, they go like this. See what I mean? This is used on their wives to keep them stupid. It's called a Masonic lash that will keep you enslaved. Freemasons in the lodge be like, look right here, kids. Look right here, kiddies. You know what I mean? You're now going to get zapped with the wand after you've been bum stretched by the worshipful masters. Right, this is not a Masonic bum stretching tool. It just makes you forget you've been bum stretched. But anyway, that's another story. And there's plenty more of this, where this come from. You know what I mean? These are my little memes. You know what I mean? You'll never find a more wretched hide of scum and villainy anywhere but within a Masonic lodge. Perverts, gang stalkers, rapists, and drug dealers. And that's a fact. You know what I mean? Look, see, this is me at Great Yarmouth. Look, Freemasonry runs Great Yarmouth, and you wonder why it's bad. The money only flows up to the criminals, which it does, and I can prove that. This insidious and incestuous See, insidious and incestuous, because they are sleeping with their own children, yeah, have had a firm grip, see, a Masonic grip on this town for almost 20 years. Now, I know the grip they've had has been over 40 odd years, yeah. 45 years I've known, 45 years, 45, yeah. I've known for about 40, 45 years I've known, yeah. Since the bird's eye strike, yeah, when my dad first talked about it, and I must have been about 8, you know, I believe. I can't remember how old I was, but I remember that, you know, and I remember my mum and dad talking about the freak tards. Again, I've got that in the videos, you know, in my past videos, you know. And again, I see the same people on the same strikes for the you know, for the try to think, wait a minute, my mind go muddle sometimes. For the dockers strike, you know, the same sort of people, same fucking thing, you know what I mean? Same people that run the doors over and over again, you know, always the same people, do you know what I mean? That top echelon, yeah. See, the trouble is, look, how do you get past them? They have the town stitched up, and they do. They got it well stitched up. But like I said, we're waking up to it. Notice it was 3, okay? Remember, it's always 3. These Freemasons, 3, always 3. But how many times was it 3? 3 times 3, yeah, which give you the 9. What's the 9? As above, so below the 6, okay? Do you know what I mean? This is what it's about. Anyway, my profane friends, is another Masonic army. See what I mean? Their symbolism knows no bounds. Look how big that army is. Here's Jimmy Savile's funeral, and as you notice, the white collars. Look at the white collars, look. You see? And again, they had the army sewn up. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's all to do with the army, the navy, everything. They sewn up. The police, regardless of what it is, they've got it sewn up. And these people are working for them all the time. Look, Jimmy Savile's funeral. Look how many people with white hair there. Look, you seen it? Anyway, but look at the Freemasons in the background. But you ask them if they were fucking attended. They go, no, we didn't attend. We didn't know. Liars. You know what I mean? They'll never get the truth out of a Freemason. Look, they're all pointed out. Look, all Freemasons. Look, each and every one of them at Savile's funeral, because they protected him for over 50 years. Over 50 years. And here's the ritual I was on about, the death ritual, where you can see here he's pretending to be a man with the sheep on the altar. Look, okay, I'm going to give you a quick run through. I've done a video on this and talked about this many times, but someone did ask about it, the picture. And as you can see, all the Masons in the background, look, and you've got the worshipful master here, yeah, with his hand on the man, and the sheep, look, is gagged. You can see the sheep is gagged. Okay, that's it. The sheep is gagged, and he's been shaved in chest. So when he puts his hand on that sheep's shed, that sheep's chest, he will feel a man's breast. Okay, he'll feel the warm heartbeat and the nipple. All right, and that's why he's blindfolded. He believes there's the man on that altar. All right. Now, like I said, whether he stabs it with that knife or not, the sheep, yeah, is the right thing to do. Okay. If he says, no, I'm not going to kill that man, because that's what he believes on that altar, a man. Yeah, they say, oh, well done. You're not a murderer. Well done. You go through the left door, and then you're a ring. He's a ring of protection, you see. Okay. And this is what they're doing. They're not just testing one man at a time. This is what I'm on about. When they go to them rooms, right, each room has a test. And each room, depending on how far you'll go, yeah, like here, there'd be a little boy or a little girl, yeah? And they'll say, here, I'll have a go with her. And if you go, no, I'm not doing that, they say, oh, well done, we knew you weren't, you know what I mean? You can't progress through Freemasonry if you're a child molester. Do you see what I mean? you know, and that's where they get their ring of denials and everything else. You see what I mean? Ring of protection, where someone else go, yeah, part of the brotherhood chat, and go with the boy. They go, oh, cool, we've got a potential here, and they go through the right door. You see, so it's always good and evil, black and white. You see the tiled floor. But anyway, that's another story. So if this guy stabs the sheep, okay, that's the right thing to do as well, yeah, because now he stabbed the man, yeah, they know they've got a potential assassin there for the lodge, and he will be willing to kill for the lodge, because the geezer on the floor here, he's gone, please don't kill me, no, don't, please don't kill me. And the guy here, the worshipful master, is saying kill him, he's a nonce, he's a pervert, he's a rapist, he's betrayed the brotherhood, whatever you want. And when he stabs that, what they do, he then spiels to the man, yeah, while he's giving him a spiel. You know, he's saying like, oh, you this, that, and whatever. It's just a load of crap. It doesn't mean anything. But while he's spieling and he's listening, the sheep is taken off the altar. Yeah. The blood is collected underneath. And then they lay a child on there, okay, or a baby, or a girl, or a man, or a woman, depending on what they, you know, the particular ritual again. Yeah. Again, it's by... you know, it's by degree. Let's put a man on there, do you know what I mean, like that, and test him. And then the next time, that might be a young girl, do you know what I mean? Because the guy's gone in, he's thinking, oh, just be another man. See what I mean? But boom, no, it ain't, it's a girl. So they're shocking him, do you see what I mean? So it's all about grooming that person into being more sinister, do you see what I mean? But anyway, so, and obviously this will be, you know, but by the time they whip that blindfold off, and that knife is put into the child, he think he's killed a child on that altar. You see what I mean? And that's what that's about. But you can I've done a full video on this anyway, but that's what that's all about there. That's what that ritual is there, yeah? To see if he's willing to kill a man or not, because he's pretending to be the man on the floor here. And whether he does it or not, like I said, it's the right thing to do. If he go no, they go, well done, brother, we know you're not a murderer, well done. If he murders the sheep, which he thinks is a man, they say, oh, well done, we knew you'd kill for the lodge, you're a real brother, you are. But they also know they got an assassin, you know what I mean? It also leaves room for blackmail.
You know what Hollywood keeps telling me? Shh. Don't say anything. You know what the American church keeps telling me? Shh. Don't say anything. You know what I have to say to Angel Studios and the new TV show Homestead? God's wrath is upon you.
And there you go. It's always the Masonic shh, because they don't want people talking. You know what I mean? They're shush. Yeah, they shush up all crimes, all corruption. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. But once you learn that shush, shh, bang, you've got them.
Inside the cabins, I just wanted you all to know that I got officially punished due to my loud ass mouth and all of the stuff I've been saying. I did not know it was coming. We usually stay a couple days after, and then I got called out for a special meeting, and sure enough, I walked into a room of masked brethren, and I was put into a situation where I was to be formally punished. The punishment was something called the Mace of Apate. Apate was a Greek goddess who basically signifies lying. She's a liar, she's deceitful. And so instead of addressing any of my concerns or things that I'm saying, they basically just said you're a liar. This is why they employ masks, because at that ceremony, which was speechless, I could not tell you who was there. I could not tell you anything about it, and I was the only one that was unmasked. So in a way, that's like a shaming technique that they use. So there you go. I was reminded of a bunch of rules, which I said that I did not break. People are already asking about what the Mace of Apate is, so I have to address that now. The Mace of Apate is a mace that hangs on a wall with a hinge. You stand in front of it, they release it, and it comes crashing down on your head. I will upload the injury. It's not a horrible injury. It doesn't knock you out. You basically get crowned, and you walk around in pain, and you bleed a lot. I was offered a handkerchief by somebody. As soon as it came down, I started feeling the blood, and they immediately offered me a handkerchief and said put pressure on it. So that's what I did. They're not messing around, man. This is what happens. This is why they employ masks. This is all Googleable too. Just look it up. It's all real.
And that's just why when you're blindfolded in the lodge, yeah, and that blindfolded whipped off, you've got 200 men in masks, yeah, and maybe another 50 out of masks. And they'll say, these are your brethrens, but all the others you don't know. Do you see what I mean? And they're all holding a sword or a gun now, I presume. They're all holding swords or knives or daggers or whatever you want, and they're all holding them menacingly. And they say, if you reveal the secrets, this is what you're going to face. Do you know what I mean? Any one of us can get to you. We can knock you off your motorbike, which is the favourite, what they say to me. And we can make you disappear. We control it all, and people are scared. That's why. You whip a mask off, and you've got 50 men there that are built like brick shithouse. Like bouncers. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Or Gypsy G travellers. And they know how to intimidate. If you didn't know that, then you should fucking learn. But and then you've got another 200 men in masks that you don't know who are in capes and cowls. Yeah, do you know what I mean? You imagine that. Some of them are dressed as devils, maybe. All of that sort of stuff. Because that's what they do. Look at the Moulin D something, whatever their books, yeah, and you'll see, in their hazing rituals. Let's see if I can get up for you. Wait there, 2 seconds, my profane friends. You know me, I ain't one to brag about it, but go to my forum and go into the hazing section, and then you can find out their hazing, all of their hazing rituals, yeah. Number 4, all about hazing rituals, and then you go to the bottom, just look at the pictures. Oh yeah, that's explaining the thingy. But here, in their books, look, they have all these gimmicks. Look, you see. You know what I mean? The guillotine. And this is where they get the body parts from. You know what I mean? They get it from the morgue. And this is where they get their heads from, or they're using real people, beheading them. Do you know what I mean? And then burying them with the, blah, blah, blah. But like I said, they're the ones that deal with death. They're the ones that are dealing with, they're your undertakers. Do you see what I mean? They're the ones that are burying all the bodies, and they're deciding what's happening to the bodies. You know what I mean? All the time. They've been doing it for centuries, But like I said, I can't get the pictures to come up for some reason. But you'll have to go have a look yourself, my profane friends. Can't even shut it down now. Shutting down. Oh, baby. Yeah, I could do it like that. But look, you see how he's dressed as a devil, look, and he's got a hot iron where he burns their asses. They do loads of games, with different, all different contraptions, yeah? And the book's called the Moulin Rouge, something like that. Was it called the Moulin Rouge? I'm sure it's the Moulin Rouge. But read the form, but they use all these different gimmicks, yeah? It's always to do with their ass, yeah? And bum stretching and things like that. Oh, I can't get it going, my profane friends. You'll have to go look at it yourself. But they use all these rituals, look, with swords and daggers, and you get into it. Look, it's always to do with the ass. You know what I mean? All to do with bums. Always the bum. But that's another story, my profane friends.
There is a cosmic law that is absolutely irrefutable that says that the cabal is not allowed to shoot the Red Cross workers. The planet itself is sick because of folks like the cabal. Ultimately, the universe is intelligent, alive, and conscious, and it is benevolent. It is a benevolent consciousness. That consciousness does not allow the negative to succeed unless it is invited. So the cabal has made a science, a very elaborate science, out of studying these arcane, occult, magical principles that allow them to get away with what they do. So they have to put out everything that tells you who they are in music videos, in these Super Bowl halftime shows, the Grammy Awards ceremonies. They're out there showing you the truth. Congress passed laws that said that if the U.S. declares bankruptcy, which it already is, that they will go into everyone's bank accounts and take their money to bail out the government, just like they did in Cyprus. You just indiscriminately release that information now. People say, what do you mean? Everything's fine. I got a car. I have food at the grocery store. I drive my kids to soccer practice. and we hang out on the weekend, we go to work during the week, our lives are fine, everything's fine. What's your problem? Why do you have to be so negative? So what they need to do is wait for things to get obvious enough that people are activated.
You see what I mean? And this is what they do all the time. It doesn't matter what you say, what you do. They do it in front of you, and they put it on TV programs, as I've shown so many times. You know, the square and the calm piss. You know, all of that is shown over and over again in hundreds and thousands of films I've done. Again, can you see it? Look, see? With FBI nominee Kash Patel with the Masonic checkerboard in the background. You see, it's all to do with Freemasonry. You know, I forgot J. Edgar Hoover. You see what I mean? Go back, he was a Freemason. That's why a lot of gangsters got away with their shit. You know?
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. You know what time it is. Y'all still feeding this stuff to y'all's kids? Tell me how McDonald's serves 7 million burgers a day. That's 2.5 billion burgers a year. Let's do the math here. If there's only 1 billion cows in the world and 300 million of those are in India where they have laws where you can't kill them, they don't eat them, you know? I'm trying to do the math and the math just ain't mathing here. Where are they getting the cows from? Where are they getting their meat from? Something just don't make sense to me. I don't know. I know what does make sense though, the math. And if the math ain't mathing, we ain't eating it.
And that is why I did my video of Masonic, where are the bodies? Because the bodies in the graveyard don't amount up to what's being buried. Do you see what I mean? The people that are dying and the death rate, the grave rate ain't computing to the same, because the Freemasons are manipulating that. Do you know what I mean? There's deals been going on for centuries about bodies and where the bodies are going and where they ain't going. Do you know what I mean? And like I said, there ain't enough cows in the world, you know, to feed us. So I think, like I said, some of it comes on us, you know, and then some of it's, you know, we eat it, don't we? That's what it is. But how are you going to prove it? Because they run that industry, don't they? You know, like I said, you go out and make yourself a funeral home, yeah? You know, you get a group of you in your town city, you open a funeral home, yeah? And you start doing funerals the right way, you'll be bombed out by the Freemasons. Do you know what I mean? You'll be destroyed, mate. You know what I mean? You try and take over the funeral industry. You know what I mean? You won't, because that's where they're trafficking the drugs and everything else through. You know what I mean? Unreal, man. You know, who stops a hearse on a highway? No one. You know what I mean? Who stops a hearse in your town? No one. So it's easy to traffic things, isn't it? You know, same as in ambulances and things like that. But that's another story, my profane friends. You see? Anyway.
Michael Jackson's sister says he knew they were after him.
What were they after?
Well, first of all, he told me over and over and over. When he first told me, LaToya, they're going to kill me. I said, who, Michael? First, I thought you were Michael Jackson. Nobody in their right mind would ever think of doing anything like this to you. That's what you think. He says, no, but you don't understand. And then I saw how serious he was. He said, it's bigger than what you think. I said, well, Michael, what is it? He said, it's my publishing. They're after my publishing. They want to take it. As you guys know, my brother had one of the largest catalogs in the world, meaning music-wise.
The Beatles collection was one of them.
He owned the Beatles, yes. There's an elevator music that you hear, just everything. Basically,
and you know who it was. Can you say who it was?
No, I cannot say, because there were other people in the house as well. Because I prefer not to at the moment, but I will say this. I would love to have a one-on-one with several people. One person I would love to have. Safe? I would love to have a one-on-one with probably,
Y'all saw that, right? Whoopi coughed to keep her quiet. Stay weird.
And that's what they do. They, you know, like I said, you can't say anything. Do you know what I mean? And these people are all in on it. All in on it. Everyone is in on it. And when you talk about it, it's shh, shut them up, shh, keep it quiet. Here's another great example of that, yeah, where, like I said, if you're a threat to that industry, and I'm going to go up here a little bit, right? Some of you more than likely have already seen or watched these videos, and I apologize for that. Hopefully there's more to come that you haven't seen, and then you are getting a bit more of an education, I'll call it an education or a wake-up call of what's going on within your own communities and your own towns and your own cities. I think it's at the top, actually. Rather than go slow, I'll just pin it right in here. We've got a way to go yet, my profane friends. And this is what they do when you're a threat to the community of Freemasonry. They're murdering you, they're assassinating you, they're making an accident of people, and they're getting away with it, and here it is. Listen.
Is nonetheless eye-opening. Check this shit out.
For the past 20 years, my wife Evie and I have been the victims of criminal activities perpetrated by a small network of individuals who are out to destroy us personally, professionally, and financially.
You see what I mean? And that's what they do, because they run it all, financially, personally, and everything else, because they are the communities, yeah, and they decide who gets on, who doesn't, who's going to make it, because they own all the businesses, they own all the jobs. Do you see what I mean? So, like I said, it isn't just it's a here we go with the global thing. It's a world thing, yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's happening. Like I said, they keep us thinking it's a global thing, it's a world thing, it's it's massive. No, it's a fucking local thing. Every town and every city is running the same system by these people, these elites, yeah? They're in your towns, they're in your cities, they've got the system, it's written down in every town and city. This person is a fucking threat, this is what you will do, and it's a playbook, like the CIA playbook, the FBI playbook, the MI5 playbook, whatever it takes. They will use that system to break you and take you down. Yeah, they don't want you standing there with the Lords, Dukes and Earls. Bloody hell, you got no chance. Do you know what I mean? They own the land. Well, you think you're going to take your land off them? You think you're going to take the businesses, what they've owned since the 16th century on your high streets and your towns? That you're going to just take that away from them? You're going to take the gold, the money, the finances, their banks? You think they're going to allow that? No, because they control the army, the navy, and they'll call you a terrorist or a whatever. You know what I mean? That's it. You ain't going to get away with it. They ain't going to allow you to do that. You know what I mean? But this is what they do. Listen.
This network of individuals is manipulating the banking system and the criminal justice system for the purposes of sabotaging our credit and our credibility. We are not criminals, nor are we fugitives from justice, nor are we crazy. We are simply artists and filmmakers who are being racketeered on. We believe there are to be a malignant tumor of star whackers in Hollywood. How many people do you know personally who have died suddenly and mysteriously in the past 5 years?
And that's the question, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? How many people do you know who's died in the last 5 years? Yeah, or by accident, or by, freaking hell! Again, my mind's gone. By character assassination, they've committed suicide, all of this. Some people are committing suicide, they're not even committing suicide, they're being murdered. That's what you've got to get, round your head. Just because a doctor and the police say, oh, it's a suicide, that doesn't make it a suicide. Do you know what I mean? It just makes it, you fuckers are fucking, do you know what I mean? You're screwing the system, and you use, like they did with Jack the Ripper, you know what I mean? They just covered up, the Jew thing, rubbed it off the wall, you know what I mean? Same as they cover up everything, same as they covered up Savile, same as they covered up the Hungerford, the Humberside, and all the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? They cover. And that's in my forum again, you just got to look what's being covered up, and it goes on and on and on. But listen.
I've personally known 8 actors, all of whom was close to. Heath Ledger, Chris Penn, David Carradine.
You see what I mean? And in them you can put Marilyn Monroe. You know what I mean? JFK. Just what I mean? And it goes on and on and on. So we're not talking like a little minor list here or an isolated case. And we're not just talking like in Hollywood. We're talking in all sorts of towns and cities, all sorts of threats that people are being killed by this minority group. Yeah, like I said, our lords, dukes and earls, any threat to that system, they're just killing them and making accidents. Or like I said, that, you know, they're doing it either financially by not giving them a job. They're doing it by intimidation, so the person stays indoors and scared to come out. They do it by financial, by intimidation. I'm trying to think of the other ways they do it, but you know, you get the idea. You know, and there's these groups of people within every town and city that are the elite, yeah, that are lords, barons, dukes and lords and fucking all the rest of it. Have got the heraldry and the shields in the back, you know, they come from the knights and all the rest of it, yeah. They've had all their little funny handshakes. You do this, you criminals, you do this, and we'll allow you to do that, so long as you keep the profane mixed up in their own shit and never interfere with us, basically. And so long as you keep that control going, we'll work this together forever. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it is. And it's just under Masonic handshakes that have been going on for centuries and decades to keep everyone piss poor, working in their system of 9 till 5s, yeah, making people homeless. Do you know what I mean? All that is all down to Freemasonry. It's a one big agenda to protect themselves.
I believe these actors were whacked, and I believe that many others, such as Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan, and Mel Gibson, are being played to get at their money. In the meantime, many of celebrities' image and marketability is being co-opted and destroyed. Google helps out by keeping the negative stories near the top of the celebrity's webpage because it's the negativity that brings in the advertising revenue. I have earned approximately $40 million throughout my career. I have profit participation in some of my films. I am being embezzled from by this monstrous ring of accountants, estate planners, and lawyers who are mercilessly slandering me and trying to kill my career, and I believe murder me in order to gain control of my royalties.
Hollywood A-listers.
And there you go. And that's what it's about. And trust me, like I said, you know, when they killed all them Indians for their oil and things like that, you know, they do it in your towns. They get close to the widows, you know, the widows of the Masons, you know, that have got all the money. They get close to them and they get someone to marry them or something like that, yeah. And they protect all them people because that's where the money is and it flows into the lodge. Do you see what I mean? You know, anything. I could go into some stories, I tell you, but we'll leave it. That's another time. But the point is, this is what they're doing within your communities. If someone's got the money, they're the ones that are getting close to them people to make sure that money flows to them. Do you see what I mean? And it always goes to them and flows to them. You know, they run the old people's homes. They run the children's homes. All of that. They run it all. You know, look at, I can't remember who won the lottery, that geezer who was a bin man, yeah? Look who turned around and who surrounded him, yeah? You look at the people that surrounded him when he won that money, that all went to them. And when you know who that went to, that's where you can, you know, and then you figure it out in your towns. You know, it's not hard to do. See who owns your land, who owns the businesses, who owns the leases, yeah? And that'll give you who's running everything, the drugs and the criminal empire within your town. And they're not there protecting you or your families. They're protecting themselves and their families and the generations that are coming down next. You know what I mean? And like I said, it all runs on Freemasons running within that lodge. Do you know what I mean? And they're just protecting their own interests because they're the lords, the dukes and the earls, and they're the ones that are running it on the heraldry, which I'll show you later on in the video. But listen.
And British Royals are paying tribute this morning to Gene Hackman as mystery surrounds the death of the Oscar-winning US actor and his wife. The 95-year-old, best known for his Academy Award-winning roles in The French Connection and Unforgiven, was found dead along with his wife Betsy Arakawa and their dog inside their home in the US state of New Mexico.
And I believe murder me in order to gain control of my royalties. And I believe murder me, and I believe murder me, and I believe murder me.
And that's what it's all about, my profane friends. Murder incorporation. You know what I mean? They decide who gets and who don't. You know, they decide who lives and who dies. These people. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's get back to down here where I was. You know me, I'm not much of a, I'm not a professional at this, so I have to go as I am. You know what I mean, my profane friends. But remember, some of this, what you're seeing today in these videos, yeah, are going to be in my next video, and then all hopefully tie in, yeah. The whoopee one.
How many Jews know that when you wear a yarmulke, that's not Jewish, it's Roman? That's why the Pope wears a yarmulke. That's why the cardinals wear the yarmulke. It's a Roman symbol, it's not Jewish. The Jews were told to wear the yarmulke to show subjection to Rome. And they got so used to using it, they think it's a Jewish symbol. It's not Jewish, it's Roman. So many people willingly bend themselves to what their masters want from them. What your masters want is for you to be in compliance, for you to think what they have told you to think. And Jews, how many Jews know that when you...
And that's what it's about, innit? The jaywalkers. More on them jaywalkers next, because once you know who they are, which is coming, yeah, then it all ties in together and you go, wow. And that's as simple as that.
Forget this moment.
See what I mean? Who remembers that? See that square and circle behind him? Look, this is MP. As soon as the pictures and the press had finished, boom, whip off the masks. Everything's safe. Do you know what I mean? It's all a game. It's all a show. You see the square and the circle, look, and the G. Do you see what I mean? All Masonic.
In the Library of Congress, high up in the ceiling, in between two faunish-looking figures with serpents for legs, is what appears to be a traditional crucifixion. But behind the Christ-like figure on the cross is a black, double-headed phoenix. The words in Latin that encircle the image come from Psalm 17:8, a psalm that is often employed in Rosicrucian writings. It reads, "Under the shadow of thy wings, protect us." The question is, whose wings are providing the protection? In the Divine Pymander is revealed the Hermetic maxim, as above, so below, as pictured by this tarot card of a magician with one hand up and the other hand down.
And that's what it is. Freakmasons are magicians. Remember that. And if you look at my posts, Masonic wands, yeah, you got to say, I'm going to show you some of my Facebook posts. My infamy on Facebook with Freakmasons, no bounds. You know what I mean? Oh, it ain't going to work, is it? I can't get this. Oh, yeah, I can. Wicked. Right. If you just put in like Stuart, yeah, Macintosh, and then just put wands, yeah, wands, and then go to posts, yeah. That one is here, Masonic wands, look. And then you find, look, Masonic wands and gang stalking Freakmasons. But you'll find that...
Fame friends, hello. Anyway, look, you see that? The 7, right, is estimation among... What does it denote? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I just want you to know, like, these are the things they learn, you know, within the lodge. These different things here. There's 3, 5, 7. You got charges of the initiate, yeah, right, like this seeing, hearing, do you know what I mean? Oh yeah, look, there it is, hearing, seeing, all these different things, and this is what you got to look, you know, logic, grammar, this is what they're teaching their children, do you know what I mean? It's got nothing to do with anything we ever learn. See, 3, 5, 7, that's all it is. Smelling, look, feeling, they learn them all this, tasting, everything they learn, do you know what I mean? And they learn about the ruins, they learn about everything, do you know what I mean? All to do with symbolism. You know what I mean? Look at this, let me just move this out of the way, this little thing here, it won't there. Give you a demonstration of this, all right?
You think like all this Masonic hints and etiquette and all this bollocks they put, like the London Grand Rank Association, yeah? Anyway, look at that for yourself. My profane friends, this is part 2. But anyway, look, guard then that book of sacred and unalterable law as you would guard your very life. Defend it as you would defend the flag of your country. Do you know what I mean? Their country, yeah, right, yeah. This is the thing. See, defend it as the flag of your country, yeah. But they have no country because they're the world. Their country is everything. They rule the world. Do you know what I mean? You've just got to get that. And like I said, if you're a king and they've got kings and queens within the lodge, I think I did the video on that. Well, I'll show you some more on it anyway. Yeah, they're kings and queens. But, you know, so each lodge, and then they have royal bloods, right, that go to the lodge, blah, blah, visiting royal bloods. So you've got all these kings and queens, yeah. You know, like I said, they run the county, you know, each county, the Right Honourable Lord, if you look at it, Farnham, yeah, you'll see that all these started Masons, yeah, have wands, yeah, within the lodge. Hello, you profane people. Wake up, right, my profane friends. This is a... Right, tonight I'll do my video of Nepotism, Lord Cornwallis. See, Cornwallis. Watch his square and compass, look, right on his chest. Look at it, eh? Oh, yeah. Is there going to... Obviously, it's Masonic. Yeah, and here's their Masonic wands. Another post, look, more on Masonic wands there, look, you see? More Masonic wands, and I go over it all, yeah? You know, the dark arts of the alchemy, what they say, you know, what they go. And it's all in their books, yeah? So it's proof, you know, not that I've made, it's their own proof. But these are Masonic wands, look, what they use within the lodge. Because they're warlocks and witches, you see, look. See, Masonic wands, look. See? Then you got their staff, which obviously, you know, like Merlin use and that, you know. I've heard they do horrific things with these staffs when they're abusing people, but that's another story. But that's what they, you know, they use wands in the lodge because they're magicians, you know, they're tricksters. Oh, that's the one I just watched, I believe. But that's what it's all about, my profane friends, you know, they're wands within the lodge. No, and this is a Freemason here confirming it. Do you know what I mean? Look, when the deacon's wands are coped, which wand is frontmost, you see? And then I show videos of where they're walking around the lodge, you know, with the wands, you know, and you can see it here, I believe. Oh, no, that's not the one. You know what I mean? But you'll see him using their wands within the lodge where he's tapping it on everyone's bloody forehead, you know? And you can see the wand here, look, is in the hand there, look, you see? Because it always goes back to Egypt, you know, Greece and everything else, you know. Hello, my profane... But anyway, that's another story, my profane friends. Is more on the wands here, look, yeah? These are wizards, look. See? Masonic wands, look, you see? These are all Freemason wands that are used in the lodge. You see the Freemason here, look. See, he's a magician, look, the magician, you see? The emperor, the Masonic magician, look, you see? And this is where, you know, can you remember Jimmy Savile wearing one of these coats, look, you see it? The symbolism of it all, see? They're magicians and warlocks, see? Look, wizards. Your leaders are wizards. Look, my father was a Freemason, a grand wizard. See? See? Freemason. Their children are ready for it, you see? It's all in their own tarot cards, look, you see? The High Priest. See? All them Masonic wands, look. You see? And it all go back to Egypt, look. And their king, look. King Solomon with his wand. police officers as Freemasons is very dangerous. See? Masonic wands. Remember, you're Freakmasons. See him presenting the wandlet? See? And the higher you go up, like I said, it's all to do with Hogwarts, and that's what it's all about. They go up through the ranks, and they become more professional in what they do. Anyway, listen.
As above, so below, but after a different manner. And what that means is that in esoteric thought, in everything that is above is reflected down below.
As above, so below is repeatedly symbolized in esoteric art and a variety of symbols, the most basic of which is a triangle pointing upward or above. This is accompanied by a second triangle pointing downward, below. When combined, they form a hexagram, commonly recognized as the Star of David, one of the most dominant symbols in the occult. Removing the base of the triangles, one can see the outline for the square and compass of Freemasonry. Esoterics believe this same principle of reflection can be found in nature, with bodies of water providing a mirror as a picture of the Hermetic maxim. With this in mind, consider the placement of the reflecting pools in our nation's capital. Before the Washington Monument, the U.S. Capitol, the Lincoln Memorial, and the Supreme Court.
See what I mean, my profane friend?
What if I told you the world you know is a lie? A masterfully crafted illusion designed to keep you trapped. Centuries ago, an explorer named Richard Constantine, a figure erased from history, emerged from the lands beyond the Great Frozen Barrier. These lands, ruled by the enigmatic Primordium families, extend far beyond the icy wall that surrounds the continents we now call Earth, or as they call it, the Inner Lands. When Richard first set his eyes on these untouched territories, he saw control. These 7 continents encircled by endless ice were the perfect stage to trap generations in a fabricated reality, disconnected from the true expanse of the world. Using ancient knowledge of celestial optics and an understanding of human perception that surpasses anything modern science can explain, Richard and his allies built a false sky. The ice wall, it became a southern pole, cleverly disguised as the edge of a spinning sphere. They didn't just rewrite maps, they rewrote reality. By convincing the inhabitants of the inner lands that the infinite lay above, they ensured no one would look outward, toward the ice wall and the truth it conceals. Generations have been born, lived, and died within this invisible prison, believing in a universe that doesn't exist. But don't worry, this is just a story, right? Or is it?
And that's the thing. Remember, they control where you go and where you don't. You know what I mean? And like I said, when you're flying somewhere, who knows where you're flying to? You know what I mean? Because they control it. You take off and you land where they want you to. You know what I mean? And let's be honest, if I, for instance, I recognise Scotland, but if they dropped me in Wales somewhere and said this is Scotland, I'd believe it because I'd never been to Wales. You know what I mean? I've been to Scotland, but that doesn't say that ain't the same landscape, if you know what I mean. And I could believe that, For instance, they could take me up on a flight. They could fly me for, they say, it takes 2 hours to get, say to Switzerland, drop me into Scotland somewhere where I've never been. There's mountains or whatever, or in Wales. And they go, oh, you're now in Switzerland. And you believe it. That's why they call the banana boat. You see what I mean? They trick you into all of this shit. You know what I mean? That's why you need a passport. You can't go anywhere. They don't even want you moving away from your own town. You try moving to another town, how hard that is. If you're on their council lists and all of that. You can't. Everything's an obstacle.
Man, so, you ever heard of Panda? Like I was telling you, Panda. So you got
Panda is a secret code for a certain thing. And so when it comes down to that certain thing, what it is you basically have a certain nerve in your rectum, and if you touch that nerve, you can turn a person into an animal, you can turn a person into whatever you want them to be if you just hold them down. So pretty much when you see black eyes like Blueface, and you know, got beat up, but he didn't get beat up where you thought he got beat up. He got beat up somewhere else. Okay? And so the eyes come out, and they call him panda eyes.
Yeah, I don't think that boy crazy. I think that boy know what he's talking about, because there was an episode he did on Jamie Foxx, and he had 2 black eyes. Man, they about did that show to overshadow the fact that they did that panda ritual on that boy to cover up them bruises on his eyes, man. Y'all go look up panda rituals. These celebrities know what they into. This shit is all a game, man. That boy know what he talking about. He explained that stuff too good.
And that's what it's all about. Go look it up. It's all to do with Freemasonry. Yeah, here we go, look. You see? And this is where they keep attacking. You see, attack. You know what I mean? But once you know what they're doing and what they're up to, this is someone who's being gang stalked in the UK, yeah? See? This is what they do. When you warn or you speak out, you are murdered, you are killed by select.
Back to bail warrant. Right, this is a woman that's been arrested, if you notice, by these policemen, of course. But notice, yeah, that it's the Wiltshire Police, and you can see the circle right in the middle, okay? The cross is a square, okay? It's also obviously on a blood background, but it's also the Knights Templar cross. But there's a circle in the middle, then you've got another circle and another circle. So it's points within circles, right? There's a square in the middle. And then the points of, how can I say this? Where the pyramids are, obviously you can see the pyramids. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pyramids, obviously for the 6. They're Masonic. And then you've got the 4 pyramids in the middle, right? Okay, what make the square. But obviously you've got the crown, yeah? Now, if you look at the crown, you'll see it's squares or diamonds, whatever you want to call it, squares and circles and diamonds, okay? And then you've got the fleur de pis. Again, you've got the Masonic cross on the front of the crown, yeah? And then you've got the point, which you can see that little white dot, which is the point, and the actual square, yeah, which is the square what makes the points on that cross. Do you see what I mean? So it's a square, point within a square, you see? Then you've got the fleur de pis on either side of that, yeah? And then we can go into the rest, and then you've got the world domination ball on top, blah, blah, blah. But again, it's just Freemasonry. This is what the police are. They're Freemasons, do you know what I mean? But they're arresting this poor girl. It's all about intimidation tactics, do you see what I mean, by the county council, do you know what I mean, because she won't pay her poll tax and shit like this.
So effectively, someone thinks that you need to go back for bail, which you haven't, so the court has issued a warrant for your arrest for you to be effectively given a new bail date to turn up at court.
So that would be on a criminal matter, wouldn't it, as well?
Yeah, it should.
Because, this is absolutely absurd. I'm not in no cuffs or anything like that. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Just the formality of it.
But I'll leave it as it is. But like I said, they send their little constables round, yeah, and they're doing the hench work of the Masonic Lodge, and that's all it is. Do you know what I mean? This is how they keep intimidating, and then they'll do other things, like they smash your car or beat you, do you know what I mean? Beat your bloody Cabbage Patch up, whatever they need to do to intimidate you and harass you into coercion, into doing as you're told within your town and city, because you cannot speak out about the corruption that the council and the criminals that are working for them that are dishing out these punishments, do you know what I mean, to keep people shush about the criminality going on within all towns and within all cities.
And more people need to step up like this lady. Have a great day. And that's the thing. And also what I forgot about the symbolism here, obviously you got the crown. You got the 9 pyramids that go around the outside. Obviously one pyramid has the crown on it, but there's 9 pyramids. And then the 4 pyramids in the middle gives you their Masonic 13. See, 4 in the middle, 9 on the outside, 4 and 9, 13. So that, again, it's the Masonic number 13, which I forgot.
Well, the translators are gone, and the live stream is waning, which means that if we just listen to my colleague Matthias, the best thing in the world would be to leave it to you, the people. Now it's up to you to share what clearly, based on the cavernous emptiness we see in all of these spaces, is only going to be heard if you share it. So it feels very appropriate that I should be the one with the quietest voice. But let's let that lion roar, shall we? I'm done talking about COVID, and I'm done talking about SARS-CoV-2, and I'm done for a very simple reason. For 110 years, we, the people of the world, have been lied to. We're a group of very small number of criminal industrial conspirators decided to subordinate the entirety of the human population.
And again, he's talking about Freemasons. Do you see what I mean? And they're doing it in every town and city. And all it is a cabal. You can call them a cabal. You can call them a syndicate. You can call them an outfit. You can call them, I forgot what the bloody other names are now. Whatever. But there's a certain group in every town, in every city, working together with one thing in common. Keep the profane, and keep them enslaved to our trickery. And that's what it's all about. But this is what he's doing. He's nailed it on the head.
For the purpose of their sinister plans to enrich themselves while impoverishing and killing the rest of humanity. And I'm done being polite. We've long passed polite. When the words acceptable death rate become part of an industrial norm, we have lost the plot of humanity. And that's not my words. Those were the words of the World Health Organization and of Pfizer and of Moderna when they were given the authorization to begin the process of killing human beings in the interest of advancing their goals. Next slide. And I'm also not going to sugarcoat this. This is a criminal cartel.
That's the word I was looking for, cartel. And you've got cartels in every town and city. And once you know your local cartel, who they are, it don't change. The corruption and the criminality don't change, yeah? They run your pubs, they run your clubs, and they got the funny handshakes, working with the police, working with the people in your town halls. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. And they don't want you knowing. They want you profane. Because being profane, they get away with it. And they've got away with it for hundreds of years. Especially the last 40 years when drugs has really been rampant and rife. Because they're responsible for that. And the people who are supposed to be looking after our best interests and our families ain't. You know what I mean? They're indoctrinating our schools, do you know what I mean? Which I've shown you in the first video, you know. They're doing all these maneuvers on you and no one's saying nothing. No one's, like I said, that video I did, again, I'll show you, where I talked about them young girls that got stabbed. Everyone's rioting, walking the streets going, oh, that's out of order. Da, da. You kids are being killed by drugs all the time. Your kids are being shot, whether they're in prams or still in pregnant women, because of they've let loose with guns on the street. They're shooting each other for the privilege and the right to deal drugs to your children, and you're not even saying anything. That's how profane you are, but listen.
We are acting as though there's some sort of redeemable quality somewhere in some esoteric layer that somehow or another the World Health Organization must have some salutatory benefit. Well, I'm going to tell you, since its formation in the 1940s, the World Health Organization has been nothing more than a criminal cartel that has a sole and singular intent. And I will show you the document that proves what I'm saying. This is not an allegation. This is actually provable by their own words in their own hand. And they use a four-step process to execute every one of their nefarious plans. They begin by planning an exercise, then they go to the business of funding that exercise, then they create the rationale for the thing that they're going to do, and then they deploy and profit from it. And in violation of 15 U.S. Code Section 19, which for those of you listening, coincidentally started with the Clayton Act in the same year that the World Health Organization in the United States, 1913, the same year the World Health Organization's progenitors also started. So I find it fascinating that we passed the Clayton Act in 1913 and we set in motion 110 years ago the criminal conspiracy, which we now call the World Health Organization. 110 years later. And in violation of TIFU, or TEFU, I don't even know how to say it, the TFEU, the treaty allegedly for the functioning of the European Union, which I think needs to now be called the Treaty for the Dysfunctional European Cabal. Article 101 unambiguously lays out the conditions that this was never a public health anything. It was racketeering for the purpose of instilling terror to adapt the behavior of a population. Period. That's what it was. That's what it always was. And we can come up with every theoretical argument we want to make about things, but the problem, even with the theory that we had an outbreak of something, is falsifiable for the data from Zurich that shows us that in the year of the death pandemic of the globe, life insurance companies paid $30 billion less in claims. Now, if there's a medical professional or a social professional or anybody else who wants to debate that we could develop a virus cunningly that could find out your bank account, your insurance policy statements, and whether you're paid up on your premiums, that's a big ask.
And also on top of that, you got to remember when you first heard about it, obviously it was on the fucking telly, but who were the ones that pushed and made up all these, again, which I can prove, who made up all these little places, like these little pop-up hospitals where you could go for your COVID, I daren't say the fucking words because you know what they're like, that made up these pretend hospitals, right, where you go get your test results and your jab, you know what I mean? Who made that? Who allowed that? It was your councils. Do you see what I mean? And who your councils run by? Freemasons. And if, again, when I went up there, who were the bouncers? Who were the doormen? Exactly what I just said. The criminals were looking after the doctors and the units, and they were getting paid for it because, again, it was Masonic money. Yeah, you know what I mean? Pay my company, we're going to look after your doctors within that unit. Do you see what I mean? And the people that were looking after the doors in the clubs and the pubs, the security, were the very same people that that are working for these people. Do you see what I mean? It all goes hand in hand, but it's all isolation, and you don't know it unless you're looking for it, which I was, and knew what I was looking for and who was and what. So I knew, and I found it, that the criminals were looking after the test centres, yeah. Do you know what I mean? And they were even naming the names of the criminals that were you know what I mean? That's how mad it was.
It turns out that the data is unambiguous. We did not have a pandemic, we had genocide. And we need to call it what it is. Next slide. When I say we planned it, let's make sure we understand exactly the not so fine print of the fine print. And I want to call your attention first to the right-hand column of this slide. This is the 2011.
Now, I don't want to go too far into this, It's 24 minutes long. The video I've been playing is 2 hours and my voice is going, so I'm going to end this early anyway. But if you want to see the full video, I will upload it if it's requested in my comment section. Yeah, I will put it fully up for you, okay? But let's carry on with the video, because this is mainly, like I said, this is about the square, the circle, and the pyramid, yeah, and the gang stalking.
The Twin Towers are an 11. Flight 11 was hijacked. New York is the 11th state. There were 11 crew members on the flight. 9/11 adds up to an 11. New York in gematria adds up to 111. Freemasonic pillars are an 11. With the black and white checkered board, black and white add up to 11. 11, 11. Black is matter, white is spirit. Was this just a Masonic ritual? I'm not making any claims, but I'm just pointing things out.
Once you learn out that everything is a Masonic ritual, yeah, regardless, like I said, you know, you come to my estate, there's pyramids everywhere, you've got the Masonic arches, and in them arches you've got 33 degrees and 7 above for the G, and you got the sun and the moon. That's what I mean, it's all built into my estate. Look at my video, you know, and it's around in your states too. It's built into everything, yeah. And once you learn that, like I said, look at your shops. On the shop, you know, each beginning and the start of each shop, there's a pyramid or a square, you know, and we can go on and on and on. But let's carry on.
That lent quite heavily on. We're seeing the whole Trump clan there now. Pretty much all of them, apart from Ivanka, Don.
See, the Masonic rituals know no bounds, and again, that's in their Masonic books. Yeah, I've shown it plenty of times, yeah, what that means. Go to Stuart McIntosh on Facebook and put in Masonic down triangles, yeah. Again, people don't know none of this, you know. You've got to find criminals, you've got to study criminals, you know what I mean? And this is how it is, look. ST, Tosh, down, triangles. There you go, bang. And you've got a video of this, yeah, what shows you the signs and the symbols, yeah, which this is what it is, but this is what it means, yeah, in this post, look, yeah, and there it is, look, and it's from their own book, you know what I mean, their own books, yeah, what tells you exactly what that is. And again,
Schau mal, was er für ein Zeichen macht jetzt. Er droht ihm. Guck mal, wie er ihn droht.
See what I mean? They show you in all their videos, if you watch for it, especially when they're doing their Congress speeches and all the rest of it. Look at this one. This guy shit himself.
We cannot simply declare ourselves. What's the guy in the background? He looks at him. Eye contact. Hand signal. Thrown away.
And that is all it takes, my profane friends. And this is what they do within your community. I'm just making the coffee because my throat is going. But that's what they do in your community. Do you see what I mean? These hand signs that can make anyone change the way they view you, talk to you, or avoid you. Do you see what I mean?
Schau mal, was er für ein Zeichen macht jetzt. Er droht ihm.
Bang, there it is.
Guck mal, wie er ihn droht.
We cannot simply declare ourselves. What's the guy in the background? He looks at him. Eye contact. Hand signal.
Again, can you see it? This is old Trump, look, and then in the background, you see him, look, right there, look. See? Trump's well at it, and there it is on telly, look, with different programs. I show it all, yeah, what it is. They're all at it, look. They're all at it all the time. See? That's what it is, my profane friend. The first guy on the left, look, and then the other guys are all doing it the same time. All of them. Look, these are our officials that we elect, or suppose it is Colombo doing it, you see? They're all at it, my friends. And like I said, you can look that up yourself, you know what I mean? But this is the book. This comes out, the full book is here, look. This is the book it came out with, yeah?
Hello, my
And I film it, yeah? This is what it's all about. Anyway, another story, my profane friends.
Gotcha, bitch.
Are you paying attention?
See the symbolism. If you know where to look, it's there. Same as I catch out their square and calm piss and their triple cross and all their other Masonic symbols within TV programs, including cartoons your children watch, including games like the Roblox, you know, all of it. You know, it's all there for you to see, and they're training your children from a very young age. And like I said, they've only got to trick you for 20 years to 30 years. You know what I mean? That's what they do all the time, over and over again. Keep tricking, keep resetting the profane, and you think, you know, oh, I've got to have a job, I've got to get a job, you know, I've got to buy a house, you know what I mean? And then when that house come up for sale, when you go in one of their old people's homes, yeah, and then you try to leave your money to your children, they go, no, if you do, we won't help you. And that's what they've done to my friend. Do you know what I mean? You know, his mum's ill. She's like, just got a colostomy bag put on her. She's not happy with it, but she's got cancer as well. But she's trying to leave her money that she worked for all her life to her son, yeah? But the social services have said to her, if you do that, then we will not help you. Do you see what I mean? So she can't even leave her money. They want the money. Do you see what I mean? So they always screw you over either way. And she's worked all her life for that money. But if she leaves it to her son or give it to her son in a will or whatever, then she gets no help. That's what they're saying to her. You give that money to your son, you're getting no help from us. Do you know what I mean? Crazy, isn't it? Do you see what I mean? All the work she's done. Another case, you know, I'll go a bit more on gang stalker. My mate, yeah, again working for a well-known Freemason, has a big company here, yeah. He's working, he's come on site, he's gone, what's he doing here, to my mate? You know what I mean? Because he's profane, he's not a Freemason. And he said, I don't want him working here. Do you know what I mean? Because he's a profane person, and he kicked him off site as soon as he saw him. Do you know what I mean? Whether he knew he was my friend and did it that because of that or what, I don't know. But again, you know, that's witnessed and fucking, you know, taken into account. Like I said, people are looking now and watching on everything these Freemasons do. They're fucked in this town anyway, but that's another story. I'm just making a coffee, that's why you'll hear the spoon go. But that's just another story. I could give you stories out of stories of these people, you know, the locals here anyway. Do you know what I mean? I know my town, I know my city, I know who owns it. I know exactly what's going on with it. But they'll live in denial. Like I said, come forward, anyone. I don't care who you are, what you are. Come and sit down with me, have a little debate, you know, we'll get on lie detectors, yeah, and we'll go see who the perverts are. In fact, when we find out who all the perverts are, yeah, we can put them live, yeah, wait there. We can go live, and then we can go hunt because obviously you guys are legends within the community, and you are our community, you Freemasons, you are the community, yeah, you make it, and you care about us, yeah, so much. We can then watch the Freemasons, yeah, who are the corrupt criminals, yeah, who are the drug dealers. We can show everybody who the drug dealers are, who's involved with them, who's protecting them, yeah. We can show their businesses, we can show them everything, their faces and everything. We can do this from the Masonic Lodge even, couldn't we? In the upstairs there at the Royal Assembly Halls, we could do it there. and then we could tell people what businesses to avoid, who to avoid, who are not, who are the corrupt career criminals within our community who've decimated the drugs with their drugs and everything else, regardless of who they're shipping in at the moment. The backbone of Freemasonry is our town and our city, because your symbolism is in everything, isn't it? And surely we can't see you controlling the drugs, because there's too much money involved in that. You wouldn't have nothing to do with that, because you're all honourable men, ain't you? Do you know what I mean? Including the police that work within the lodge.
Hi, my name's Joanna Hutchinson. I'm the quantum seeker. I just thought I should post a TikTok video explaining a bit about my background and who I am and what's been going on. I just posted a couple of videos about what's been going on outside my house. It wasn't really my intention to do that, it just happened. So this was going to be my first ever video. The others just happened because it happens constantly. I am a targeted individual, I'm gang stalked 24/7. There's all sorts going on here. So I'm a whistleblower. I have a huge amount of key information that will help collapse the corruption and the darker side. And I know many people aren't aware yet that that's what's happening. But many of you are. So this is good news. This is good news. But it's going to be a tough journey because so many things have been hidden from us that are going to come to light, and it's going to be a shock for many. And I mean a shock. The things I know, because I can access their conversations, their secret network of conversations, which I have gone public with 2 years ago. I went public on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute 2 years ago, LinkedIn, a number of other ways of connecting to other people and to let them know what was going on. So if you look at YouTube, there is a history there of when I first went public and what I knew then. However, since then, that's 2 years ago, my knowledge has grown tremendously. And I mean tremendously, because I'm not allowed out of my house. They call me a prisoner of war. They say I'm under unofficial house arrest in solitary confinement, being starved. I've only just got my internet turned back on. It was, even that was shut down for a year. So I'm on the rise. I'm on the rise because they can't stop this. This is 2024. There are lots of amazing, energetic things happening, which will basically collapse the dark side. And I'm just, as well as many other people, I'm one of the people who is involved in this. And the aim of the game for us as just normal people is just to raise our awareness and our consciousness so we can see through the veil of deceit. And I'll post other videos to let people know about how they can do that going forward. I know a lot of you already have, and that's why you've been amazing and support. I can't believe the support I've got on TikTok. It's blown me away. For 5.5 years, I've tried to get my message out there, and I've been shadow banned everywhere. The information has been suppressed. I now go on TikTok, on Twitter, and post to GCHQ and Bletchley Park and terrorism police, because this is what is happening to us is outrageous. I can't even tell you some of the things that are happening to us, to your children, to your grandchildren, to future generations. It is horrendous. So I'll be going through that in detail. They will literally do anything to silence me, and I mean anything. But I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm going to go through in other videos about how many times I've been arrested, how many times I've been assaulted. I've been on trial for the last 4.5 years out the last 5. On Monday, my Crown Court case collapsed once again because the police refused to give the evidence. Now, bearing in mind, they were the ones prosecuting me because they couldn't, because it was fake. I have a very good lawyer, a great barrister team. Otherwise, if I didn't, I would have been in prison or dead by now. So this again is great news. I know there are a lot of other people who are going through this. gang stalking, to speaking out. People are targeted individuals and they don't even realise it. When they start to see the information coming out on these videos, they'll start to recognise that actually it's not just a whole load of bad luck, it's happening to them. So it's really about getting the message out there. They're very good at making people feel like if they say something they're going to look crazy. But the more of us are doing it, we need to get this message out. We need to stand together. We're better together. We've got this, people. They can't win. They literally can't. I have so much information on them. It just won't. They just can't stop it. It's not possible. So yeah, please check out some of my other social media platforms for detail and how I found the secret conversation network that I reported to the directors of National Crime Agency when I found it, because I know them. Was a successful businesswoman who's very well connected. That's why they've underestimated me. And so there is lots of information, but what I didn't know, it's the security services and the Matrix. When I started this journey, I didn't even know the Matrix existed. So it's going to be a roller coaster of a journey. I have a lot of truths for you, a lot of shockers. They're going to hate it that I've got so many views on TikTok, and I am very, very, very grateful, because 5.5 years of being terrorised is a very long time. Thanks very much. I really, really appreciated it.
And the Freakmasons are experts at it, at gang stalking, anything that's tactical. They're the experts. They've been doing it for centuries and decades. And like I said, as I've said many times before in videos, some people don't even realise they're being targeted by Freakmasonry because it's always covert. Yeah, I didn't know for years. You know what I mean? It's and it's always terror tactics and there's all sorts I could go into, which I've got in videos anyway, but that's another story. But like I said, that there's a lot out there. I didn't know nothing about their sonic weapons and all that, but I know people that are harassed by it. It doesn't mean I'm going to dismiss it, because Freakmasons are capable of anything. Yeah, and they experiment on us all the time. Yeah, you may not think it, but they do. They experiment on us all the time. Like I said, they want your bloods. They want your bloods. As I've said before, because they're looking for heraldry, that lineage, any bloods that can help them, or an organ. You might have an organ they want, yeah. So they make you an accident and kill you, and that organ helps someone in the Masonic lodge. Do you see what I mean? It helps a brother or a sister in that lineage. Do you see what I mean? And that's what they do. So when you go to give your blood, or you fill in your forms, all it's doing is giving them information on you and where you're located, and if they need you at any particular time to take you out to benefit them and their brotherhood, that's what they're going to do. Same as why they control alcoholic lines, why they control drug lines, why they control especially abusive and rape lines. They control all of that, and they've got special people there that get off on listening to that particular, that narrative. You start, you ring them up and you start talking about your experience and the horror you went through. The person on the other end is getting off on that. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what they put. It's like children. You want to get near children, you'll become a teacher, or work with social services or whatever, because that's your thing. Or you work in an amusement park, things like that, to get close to that what you want. You know what I mean? If you like sleeping with dead bodies, you become an undertaker. You become working in a morgue like Jimmy Savile. Do you see what I mean? And that's what they do. They get off on it. So they'll like working in rape lines and things like that. So you're not, all you're doing is ringing them up, and whether they got to shush you up, do you know what I mean, or whatever, because you're reporting another brother for rape or whatever, and that's what it's all about, and then, like I said, their lines of defence, yeah, and their cable toes of covering crimes up is astronomical. They can't get away with it so much now because of the internet, and people are coming forward and saying their stories, and people are waking up, there's a big awakening, but once people realise, that you are being targeted, that you're actually being targeted, your children into being drugs, being drug, like, because the more people they get on drugs, the less people that think about them. Do you see what I mean? So that's, that weakens a society and a community, doesn't it? Yeah. If half your men that are supposed to be, that think whatever, don't think, and all they think about is their hit, that's weakening half of your community. Do you see what I mean? Because all they think, the person that they're respecting is their dealer. Do you know what I mean? All they care about is their dealer and their drug. Do you see what I mean? So already they've weakened your community by putting out their drug dealers within that community and keeping half your community, zonked out on drugs. Do you see what I mean? Again, I'm going to show videos on that. And this is how they get away with it. And people don't realise that they are targeted specifically because of generations ago, your family's assaulted them or done something wrong. Do you see what I mean? Or like I said, you might have slept with one of their daughters, what was Queen of Sheba, in the lodge, and there's a princess or a goddess to them, so you get punished, or one of your relatives do,
I need to leave my, you know exactly who I am. Yeah, you do, because that's why you're here. Okay. Other side of the gate, please. Other side of the gate, please. Other side immediately. You are trespassing.
Essentially.
You are trespassing. If you want to speak to me, you either speak via my lawyer or you go the other side of my gate.
It's either a case of speaking to you like this or potentially arresting you for the offence of public order.
Well, okay, you tell me what I've done. You go to my lawyer if you want to arrest me.
At the moment, it's been alleged that you've been shouting stuff. For example, calling the workers over there paedophiles. That needs to stop. You cannot do that. You are also...
Oh, no. I can film anybody. I'm from my own property.
Yeah. However, they...
Get off my property now, please. Please leave this property. My legal team support me. There are signs there that say you are not allowed on this property. You must remove yourself to the other side of the gate now.
Essentially, a crime report will be raised from this, and you'll be a suspect of that crime.
What crime?
The crime of public order, Section 5.
So that's the best anyone can get on me, because I'm a whistleblower, and I know all about the police and their paedophile networks. I know about it, because I can read the conversations. 369leaks.com, and what we're not doing is putting up with this rubbish anymore. We are standing up for our rights. And if I want to film corruption going on outside my property...
Workers doing their job?
They're not, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like we're just doing our job. And it's just
So you've been sent by the Matrix, and I can prove that.
We've not been sent by anyone.
Yep.
We've spoken to them over there. There's no Matrix.
There's no Matrix?
Yeah.
Are you a Freemason?
No, I'm a police officer.
Okay, so you're not a Freemason as well?
Okay.
Do you know about police corruption?
Do I know about... Of course there's police corruption.
Okay, so now if you wouldn't mind, I live on my own. You need to step away on the other side. Step away on the other side of the gate. I am feeling... But I also have proof that you fake the CCTV evidence and body cam footage, and that's why I'm harassed constantly. So you need to step over the other side, please. You need to step over I've made 5 complaints to the Independent Office of Police Conduct. I already have. I've made 5 already. You must step over the other side of the gate. You are trespassing. You do not have...
And that's what they send, their Masonic police that hide their aprons under the uniform. Do you see what I mean? And this is the thing, the police that are working within the Masonic Lodge, yeah, they're not working for the police, they're working for the Masonic Lodge, and they're shushing up people, and that's the thing, you start filming crime, and really, and I mean investigating crime within your town and city, like we are, they don't like that. They then send people like him to come round and arrest you, and while you're arrested they'll take your keys and they'll search your house, plant evidence if they need to, drugs or whatever, anything they can get on, to get you rearrested and put away. It's what they used to do back in the day. Again, I've got it on videos and I've shown you, and that ain't come from me, it's come from other policemen that have left the force, that have complained about the Freemasons within the force, but this is what they do. And like I said, she captures someone filming nefarious, say, children going into a house or, whatever. They're going to cover it up and they're going to try and shush you up because they don't want that, because that's their ritual place, and it's more than likely standing on a ley line, do you know what I mean, or something like that, do you see what I mean? So they want to protect that. So she becomes a threat and then they target her, same as they did for Brian Harvey, you know, another man that's been targeted by Freemasons and the crime lords. Because if you look into who controlled the doors of London, yeah, you think the doorman and the people who run the club didn't know about the red rooms? Of course they knew about the red rooms, and the people who control the doors in the clubs and the pubs, like the Cray twins, you know, they run their clubs and their pubs and all of that, yeah. That's what's controlling that industry. Do you see what I mean? And they're all Freemasons that belong to the lodge. And like I said, it's very clever, very astute. You know, that's why, you know, like I said, Ronnie and Reggie had all them parties. Do you know what I mean? And you had the MPs there, and you know, all them lords and the dukes and everything having their private parties with young boys. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, again, I've done that in video, so I don't need to go that again. But this is what you're having to put up with. You know, with these Freemasons, they'll target you with any and every way they can. You know, like I said, if they send the police and the police can't be effective, what they then do is get a couple of social services to turn up. And they go, oh, well, check your kids. We've got to do, and they look for anything to screw you over and then get you in that system. You know what I mean? Put you on probation for a year where you got to keep signing on and all of this shit. You know what I mean? Trying to distract you away from what you can do and what you can't do. And they've done it to my friend. You know, I've got a video coming up on that. You know, where you know, they're doing hand signals in the courtroom. You know, the ushers and, you know, the Batmen or whatever they fucking are. They're doing Masonic hand signs behind her back, and she didn't even know. Do you know what I mean? But obviously I picked it up because I know it, you know what I mean? And anyone who sees it, well, you wouldn't notice it. I've done it in videos, again, search my wall, you know, for, you know, Masonic court ushers signaling, yeah, it's all that, you know, it's all there, you know, but I've got a video coming out, another one, a fresh one on it, you know, and you'll see, like, someone will lean in, say something to the usher, the whole thing changes then, and then he starts signaling, you know what I mean? But that was someone who was working against her that she didn't know about, you know, because that's what they do. They assign you people that you don't, you know, that you think are your friends, can be your girlfriend or boyfriend, but they're there working against you, and they're paid from the lodge, and they're on an agenda, you know, and they're working two lives, you know, they're like undercovers, you know, like them undercover cops, you know. There was a post about it the other day. You know, they were having marital affairs with all these women, having babies with them, you know, when they were undercover cops. You know what I mean? You know, but that's what they do in Freemasonry, you know, and they're paid for that. They're paid in oil and corn, as they say, but it's a lot more.
That are involved in the data that I can read, which is, and this is one of the reasons why I say some of this stuff is absolutely foul and disgusting, and nobody, like, most normal people would not even be able to read this stuff. It's horrific. Here we go. Yeah. Don't like the look of that one. Order of 9 angles. So the post would have been, so I also have these conversations, and they are working with your security services, 77th Brigade, police, etc., and the government, Freemasons and friends. So someone going to do anything about this, or just cover it up once I'm taken out? So now we're going to flip through. So this is what the post is about. This is confirmation to the to our secret services, whatever you want to call them, that this is what I have evidence of at this level. So my source of, which we know isn't everything, isn't. Oops, wrong way. Sorry. There we go. Let's see. So. Now, this is Wikipedia, so we know this is going to be gentle, right? Not really what it is, not as bad as it is. So, the Order of 9 Angles is a satanic left-hand path, militant, occultist and terrorist network that originated in the United Kingdom but has since branched out into other parts of the world. Claiming to have been established in the 1960s, it rose to public recognition in the early 1980s, attracting attention for its neo-Nazi ideology and activism, describing its approach as traditional Satanism. It also exhibits Hermetic and modern pagan elements in its beliefs. So just to recap for anyone that's just joining, I'm confirming that I also have access to this terrorist group, their conversations in detail. According to the Order's own claims, it was established in the Welsh marches of Western England.
I think it's to do with this lady here. Yeah?
Hi, my name's Joanna Hutchinson. I'm the conference speaker.
Need to leave that are involved in the.
So that's what that is. That's her second video. So go see her anyway. Her name is Quantum. Let me go at this one. Quantum Seeker.
Hi, my name's Joanna Hutchinson.
Yeah? So you can pick up on her story there.
That are.
You can pick up on her story there. But like I said, once you know, and if you look at the background of any of these groups, the original people, yeah, the think tanks within the Masonic Lodge go, we need a committee of boom, boom, we need people to join, yeah, or make a group up, and that's what they do, boom, and that's what they do. Because then they get people like strays and all the rest of it, and they watch them and they see what they do. But the people that join it, they think they're just joining this group. They're not. They're joining the Freakmasons. And the Freakmasons are hiding behind that, again, that facade. Their apron ain't on show. Do you see what I mean? So they think they're joining this group, and it ain't. It's not that. It's you're joining Freakmasonry. Like, you join Scooter Skins, and you've got your green jacket on, and you're riding your scooter, proud as punch. But the leaders are all Freakmasons. They're hiding their Masonic apron, and all they're doing is manipulating the profane that join the gang for protection. Do you see what I mean? Same as like 1% bikers, the same thing. The top echelons are all Freakmasons, and they all belong to the lodge. And when a job needs doing, someone killed, shot, maimed, or whatever, yeah, or the control of that particular community or that area, yeah, it falls down onto them. We need that person silenced. We want him shushed up. Can you get one of your gang members to do it? And obviously, when a man who's a 1%er gets told what to do, that man who's in that gang follows that order. So you look at Dave Courtney, look at the funerals he did and who was escorting who and what. Yeah, he had 1% bikers with him. Do you see what I mean? So now, if Dave Courtney's a Freakmason, yeah, and a lot of the people I know who associated with him, yeah, I don't mean everyone. I don't know fucking, I'm just on about the ones that were connected at Yarmouth to him, yeah, and the bikers that did the doors at King Street and things like that. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of research I've done. But that connection there, when the order comes from the Masonic Lodge in Great Yarmouth, because he's a brother, the 1% biker or whatever, who's controlling that gang? Do you see what I mean? Who's in control of it? Okay, look, let's go like this then, right? Okay, you got a Freakmason, right? He swore oaths. He's been in there 20 years, right? He's a biker. He's a Scooter Skin. He's because like I said, they change their uniforms as often as they like, and it's all about, with Freakmasonry, like I said, they wear different wigs, different disguises all the time. They're wearing different uniforms, yeah, and it doesn't matter. Whatever they go into, they are. Do you see what I mean? And they change. They're like chameleons. You know what I mean? But where's the loyalty lay? With the bikers, with the Scooter Skins, or with the Freakmasons? Where do you think his loyalty stands? Because you got brothers, right? Yeah, in arms in the biker gangs. But then you got brothers that are Freakmasons. So where does that loyalty lay? Do you see what I mean? What supersedes that? Do you see what I mean? Does these biker gang supersedes Freemasonry, or do Freemasonry supersede the biker gang? What do you think? What comes out on top? I know it's not hard to work out, is it? Again, we've got the Freakmason here, look. And the interesting thing on this picture, and that's the only one I want to show, is the shushlet. You see the shushlet? It's a thumb to the mouth. Oh, no, sorry, no, this isn't the picture, sorry. No, this one is the penalty, yeah? And if you look at the penalty, they're holding their throat, look, you see? Your throat will be torn open if you reveal we are nonces in the community. And I think that is still the shush though, but there is a shush sign with the thumb, yeah. But this is I think is where the throat is torn out, I believe. You know what I mean? And again, he's being knighted, and then he's hit with the mallet or the maul on his fucking head. He's a fucking idiot. But that's what that is. Yeah, that's the maul. Yeah. Okay. What we got here?
Now we're in India, and the symbolism through this, there's actually physically square and calm piss. But can you see it? Look, out from the top, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. It's the fleur de piss. These are the fleur de piss. Do you know what I mean? Upside down, of course, as above, so below. But you got your 3 diamonds and then your 2 diamonds. These are your Masonic urns. Oh, baby. But can you see it? The whole building, I don't know much about it. I'm only showing you this one. There's tons of symbolism all the way through it. Stop. See the same, look. Pyramid, the Masonic arch, everything. Oh, you can't get close up on that. But you see the sun hieroglyph, look. You can see the obelisk, look. But it's all there, look, the symbolism. Can you see the circles and squares, look, just below the sun hieroglyph? You know what I mean? Everything's the same. So where the hell are the Freemasons? Do you know what I mean? And then outside here, look, you got the columns or the pillars of Freemasonry. Jack and Boaz. There's symbolism. Oh, it's the High Court, look, advocate in a High Court. So how, again, are the Freemasons advocating for the high courts? Do you see what I mean? They always control the courts, the police, the judicial. Their symbolism will be their downfall, I hope. Even the doorbell is point within a square. Silly Freemasons. Have a great day, my profane friend.
And that's what I mean. It's in different films all the time. I haven't even got to a square, a circle or a pyramid yet, and this is what the video is about. But I'm just showing you, and I'm hoping I'm just like educating you in some of the ways of what Freemasonry does within your communities.
Masonic Haydar, and as you can see, look, it's full of the Masonic symbolism. So Freemasonry, can you see it? Look, 3, 2, 3, my profane friends. Oh, baby. Obviously, it's 666, but, this is what they're all about. The Freemasons run everywhere and everything. You know what I mean? Look, and guess what? It's the council. You know what I mean? The council office. Anyway, my profane friends, have a great day. Freemasonry run their armies, the Navy, oh, baby, and the Air Force. Have a great day.
Where does that symbol come from? It's never written explicitly in the Bible itself. Is it in the Talmud? Yes. Is there a passage in the Bible about that or no? No. Okay. So you're not really sure exactly where that comes from? No. You got me? Does it nobody knows? I don't know. Yeah. Because I know it's called the Star of David. Yeah. Does that have anything to do with David? No, I don't think so. There must be somewhere. I do not remember exactly what the association was. Okay. You get back to the Masonic fraternity of Freemasonry. Yeah. Their great symbol is G. You'll look at the star on the compass, which is a stylized Star of David. In fact, they have the entire Star of David in many Masonic temples. Why is that? Masonry is a study of the Kabbalah. Albert Pike said in his book Morals and Dogma that the Kabbalah is the very basis. Without the Kabbalah, we would not have the 33 rituals of the Masonic Lodge. But the god they worship, the great architect, is Moloch. God, star god, called Remphan or Kiyun. All these were names for Moloch.
He took up the tabernacle of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. And the star of your god Remphan, but ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and Chayun your images, the star of your god which ye made to yourselves, and Chayun your images, the star of your god, and Chayun your images, the star of your god, and Chayun your images, the star of your god.
And I know the blasphemy of them which...
And there you go. As I've shown you many times before, how the 232, yeah, makes the Masonic cube where you go around the circle, yeah, and it's the Ra. And again, which the 232 makes the star, what they're now talking about, but also the 232 makes this, yeah, and they just show it perfectly there in that picture there. Look, oh, if I just get it in again, that is there. That is the picture exactly there. What the Masonic 232 represents, and that's what that is there. Do you know what I mean? And like I said, when you're dealing with Freemasonry, they control all sides. Yeah, if there's 5 people involved, yeah, like 5 countries or 5 people or whatever, they are involved of running it, regardless. You know what I mean? Like Joan of Arc, yeah, surrounded by Freemasons. They started all the wars, do you know what I mean, to get the control. And again, if you see my videos, you know, on the heraldry, which I'll upload after this videos, you know, this is what you're up against, you know, but that's the perfect example. And if you know my Masonic police symbolism, you know exactly what I'm on about when I show you these 2 signs here, because that's what 232, exactly what that is, Masonic. Actually, should I show people, because people maybe not understand.
I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. They are not Jews, and their claiming to be Jews is blasphemy. But you claim to have a covenant relationship with the God of righteousness. I say you are so-called Jew. You are Satan masquerading as a covenanted people. You must be exposed, regardless to the consequences. The synagogue of Satan is not just composed of so-called Jews. It's composed of people of like minds that are under their influence.
And that's what it's all about. Like I said, you look at my Masonic police symbolism, I explain that exactly what that is.
You ever wonder why, whenever people need a hero, one magically appears? It's like clockwork, and no, it's not coincidence, my friend. It's by design. Think about it. You've got fighters, the revolutionary thinkers. They show up, make some noise, stand. We all rally around them, right? But here's the kicker. They're all handpicked, groomed, and trained to lead us exactly where the elites want us to go.
Same as with Tommy Robinson and every bloody one else. Do you know what I mean? These are not your leaders, you know, like the people who go UKIP and Starmer and all that. They're just all puppets. They're all actors. Yeah, trying to get a reaction from you, for you to follow this, to you to follow that, for you to divide yourselves amongst these groups, the Blue Lodge, the Red Lodge, you know, Tory, Labour, all of these different groups they make up, yeah, and then in the towns and the cities they go, oh, are you voting that? And then, you know, the Freemasons are the ones that are forcing that on you. Yeah, they got the narrative on it, yeah. Oh, who are you voting with? You know, they're bringing it up and they've been told to do that. You know, they're from the higher echelons to the lower, you know. Again, I can prove that, you know, this fucking idiot, you know what I mean? He's doing his videos, you know, and he's talking and all that, and he's going, yeah, get with Robert Lowe. He's all right, because he's a Freemason. Do you know what I mean? He's got a lot of, like, you know, he talks in the community and all of this shit, you know what I mean? And, like, everyone looks up to him. But anyway, that's another story. But, and he's going, yeah, get with Robert Lowe or whatever his fucking name is, you know, who's our MP here. And he's giving all his money to the charities and all of that. Another little bit, he doesn't need, you know, he's giving the money to charity because he doesn't need it, because he's a Freemason. He's loaded anyway, and he's being paid in oil and water from the lodge. Do you see what I mean? And he's got all them special, so that money's nothing, yeah. And he's giving it to charity. And who's running the charity anyway? the charities he's given it to are Masonically run. So again, they're getting the slice back, and it goes back into the lodge anyway. Do you see what I mean? And then he gets his cut back, and he still gets his wage, what he's getting anyway, what he gives to the charity, what belongs to the Freakmasons. Do you see what I mean? That's how they fucking run it. You know what I mean? Very, very clever people. You got to remember, these are think tanks. So people go, oh, he's giving his money to charity. He's a fucking hero. But not knowing that the money he's given to the charity belongs to the Masonic Lodge, is run by a Freemason, and he's paid back that very same money that he's given away back in fees and dues that he's earned from the lodge. Do you see what I mean? For the job he's doing. And that's how smart they are. Look into it. Every one of them's the same. It doesn't matter. He's getting paid separately by the Masonic Lodge because it's a career. Yeah. When they get raised to Master Mason, they used to get, I'll see it's in a book, I'm still looking for it. They get £100,000 for being raised up into each. They get money every time they're raised up into into the levels. Do you know what I mean? It used to be £100,000 for being a Master Mason. It's obviously gone up now, but that's what they're paid, tax free. You know what I mean? And that's their holiday money. But there you go. Listen.
There are layers to this matrix. Think you've woken up? They control the heroes, the villains, the entire narrative, and it's not a recent thing either. This has been going on for years. These heroes, they're not just random people. Oh no, they're agents. Trained actors, psychologists, manipulators, often coming from families with deep ties to intelligence networks. Their whole life is designed for one thing, to play a role that attracts a specific audience.
And if you look around in your town, you'll find these actors. They're in your fucking Yarmouth Mercury that's owned by Freakmasonry. Do you know what I mean? And they're in there as heroes, like this, that, and the other anti-bully campaigns and all that, but they're the biggest fucking drug lords and gang stalkers, bullies you could ever think of. People getting robbed and stolen from and burgled because they're dealing the drugs, but they're heroes in the paper. Oh, look at that. And their families go back generations. They're cults and fucking whatever else. Do you know what I mean? It goes back. You just got to do the research. That's what it's about. Research your leaders. Your leaders are Judas goats leading you round in circles. Do you know what I mean? But this is what it is, the heroes within your community that are in your paper, boxers and fucking all the rest of it, this, that, and the other. You see them over and over again, the same Freakmasons, do you know what I mean? Getting in the paper just to give you a story, just something to read, just something. But they'll never talk about the real issues of what's really going on.
You think you're following this independent voice of the people, right? But in reality, you're following an agent of the system. And it's no accident that their message resonates with you. Every hero is crafted to appeal to a certain demographic. It's psychological warfare, man. They know exactly who they're targeting. Look back in history, all those figures we've been taught to admire, the heroes in our textbooks. A lot of them weren't who they seemed. Just like today, they were created to manipulate the people of their time. And guess what? The heroes of today, they'll be studied in books by future generations, used to manipulate them in the same way. It's always the same playbook, make the hero seem like they're fighting the system, like they're on our side. Sometimes they even get shut down by the powers that be to cause a spectacle, get us to sympathize, to believe they're just like us, make us root for the underdog, and then we follow them blindly into another deception. But here's the most messed up part. Instead of waking up and thinking for ourselves, we latch onto this hero, follow them wherever they lead, and end up right back in the trap. Whenever people need a hero, the elites are more than happy to supply one. And the worst part, you never even saw it coming. So next time a hero rises up from the shadows, ask yourself, are they really one of us? Or are they just another character on a much bigger stage? I'm going to go ahead and say this is all for entertainment purposes and entirely fictional, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. A bit like stupid low. I'll give my money to charity. But it'll come back to me because I run the charity anyway. and it'll come flowing back into the Masonic Lodge, because we always, you think about the money that Freemasonry own. You look at any charity, I don't care where it is, you look into it and you'll find Freemasonry runs it. You look at any avenue of help for you or anyone who's profane, you'll see it's run by Freemasons, and there's a committee behind that. Do you see what I mean? Your school board, you look at your school board, the majority will be Masonically owned, and fucking, it's all Freemasonry. The whole system is Freemasonry, and they control it and they dominate it in every town and city. And like I said, you've got special people that are lords, dukes and earls, the elite, that then answer up to the state or the town. Like I said, it goes up and up and up till you get the top echelons. Do you know what I mean? But you're basically dealing with elite families that have controlled your towns and your cities, allowed the drug dealing to go on because it keeps you under control and passive, that control the businesses, because then you're spending money to them and it keeps you poor. So they train you to consume shit, You know what I mean? You buy crap you don't even need half the time, I could go on and on, but there you go. I'm not here to go on and on. You know me, I don't like to talk much about Freemasonry. But let's carry on. See, they're dumbing us down to protect their own interests, and that's what they're doing. But don't tell anybody; they won't believe you. And they don't. You don't. You can go around telling them. I talk to people all day long, and they laugh and they go, whatever, And obviously they're going around saying this and that about me. You know what I mean? Watch him; he's crazy. He's fucking all of this crap. You know what I mean? But they've got the stronger narrative because all the heroes, and all the people that are well respected, who hide their Masonic aprons behind influential positions within my town and within my city. Do you see what I mean? Well, within my town. And that's the thing. See, they hold them positions of power. So, like I said, who's going to believe me? I'm just a peasant, a profane peasant. Do you see what I mean? Where they can stand there with their police uniforms, do you know what I mean? Or their suits of officials, you know what I mean? And they're believed, you know what I mean? So what chance have I got, And that's the thing. They don't want people listening to me. Trump Towers, look, with the Masonic cube. Again, look. Only pyramids know no bounds. Our pyramids know no bounds. We protect the G Brotherhood. And the G Brotherhood, if you know what the G Brotherhood is, which are the Masonic travelers, you'll find them running all towns, running every town and city, They're the ones, the Knights Templars, that own the land, and they've been owning it for centuries and decades. And there it is, Masonic Gypsy G Travelers Protection Squad for the elite. 2 Masonic cubes, look, you see? The square. We're on the square. The Freemasons are on the square. You see? And that's what it's all about. And the 2 lines between the E and R, that's Jachin and Boaz. You see? And then you got your circle, you see, within a circle. And then your circles within 2 squares. See? Crazy stuff. But there's your square and calm piss. Hidden in plain right again. That's your Freemasons. Here's your fleur de pistlet, and then you got your circles within the square. Again, another Masonic badge for Freemasons and the police. Heraldry, 3 circles make a square. Remember that. You see the 3 circles, look? On the heraldry shield, look? The 3 circles that make a square. And then you got your 2 circles within the square, you see? Obviously, you got your pyramids, and we can go on. And it's the sun hieroglyph, because it's the sun hieroglyph was shining out there, again, for Ra. Here's the Masonic 232 cube of Saturn, look, within the police sign, because they work for the Masonic Lodge. You can see it's 323 also, which then makes the square and calm piss. But the 232 in the dark blue, what makes the Masonic cube. which again goes to that star and the Hitler sign. And there's your 323, look, you see, which makes the square and calm piss. You see? So that's what that is, look, the Masonic cube of Saturn, and the other one, the white, because again it's the blue lodge, yeah, and you got the white lodge, if you didn't know, make the square and the calm piss. Masonic Blade Runner. Can you see the pyramids? And the pyramid here, of course, because it's more than likely a Masonic lodge, again, you know what I mean, on location. But what I want to show you is the 3 chairs around the round table, and every chair and every table in this room is the same. So again, I think this is a Masonic lodge more than likely. Stop. So there you go, look, 3 chairs, round table, sitting on the square. They're ritualistic knolls. 1 chair, 2 chair, 3 chair, round table. You know what I mean? Sitting on the square. There's symbolism, knolls, no bounds in all films. But I'll just let it play for a second there just to show you the next one. Treasure Island. And there he is. You know what I mean? And behind him, of course, there is the pyramid. They can't help themselves. Anyway, have a great day, Blade Runner. Wonderful. Yeah, and that's Harrison Ford. And now this brings us on to some pyramids. Again, that form, I'm not going to cough, sorry, it's going to go. Sorry. So again, we're seeing the 3 chairs that make the pyramid. We're seeing the round table that makes the compass. And then we're sitting on the square where the feet of the chair make the square, you see? So it's squares, circles, pyramids of Freemasonry. There's profane friends. Watch this guy's story from the beginning right through to the end, yeah? But I'm just going to do the end piece because that is the message, basically. So listen and learn, my profane friends, especially you crime lords.
See your friends who you think you've got. They're not real. I'm telling you, I know they might say this, they might say they've got your back, but it's not real. And what I've learned is, say you've got like a lass and some kids outside, and your mate comes to you, and you class him as your best mate, and he says, "Oh, mate, we've got some graft. Let's go." Is that a mate? When he knows you've got a family to look after, and he's putting you in a position where you can go to prison so you won't be looking after your family. And this is what I started to think like. I think your logic needs to change on what your loyalty is to people, because it's just, they're not for you. They want you with them so you can go and do stuff with them and stuff, but they're not there. And when you go to jail, think about this for majority of prisoners now. When you were in jail, how many of your friends who you grew up with are writing to you right now? I bet you it's your mum, and maybe your auntie, and maybe your lass. But how many of all your friends who you used to hang about with, how many of them writing to you right now? Not many. And I can tell you that now because they don't care. You're in jail, out of sight, out of mind. And you go in jail because you're trying to impress them. You want to impress everyone on the estate, you're a criminal. And then when you go in jail within a year, you forgot about. No one wants to know. Yeah. You know, and that's the only lesson I can say, because I don't think inmates will listen anyway. They're stuck in their thing for now until it's time. But that's the only message I can say is just look at who's writing to you right now, and you'll see who your pals are, and you'll see you don't have many. And when you get out and you go down the right path, you meet people and you see different morals that what makes you realise that you will live in a different life. Do you feel as if you get used a lot, Shane? 100%. For example, like I've just said, no one would write to me for years and years on end. A year before I'm getting out, suddenly I'm getting all these letters off all my friends and family telling me all the problems and about how such and such went round and did this to them. And I just started thinking, you haven't wrote to me in 7 years. Now I've got a year left. Suddenly you're writing to me, telling me problems because they want me to get out, you see, because I'm known as being a nutter, and they want me to go and sort the problems out. They're not friends. Well, if they wrote me all the way through my 8-year fair sentence and fair enough. But that's what I just realised, they're not your friends. Like one of my family members before, when I got out, my wife fell pregnant, and my cousin got done in. He come round my house with a bloody nose, and I was like, oh, what happened there? He said, I've got done in. How will you come round? What are you doing for us? I was like, I've got a lass who's pregnant. Went to their house, my auntie's house, a couple of days after, she went, oh, how come you didn't sort the lad out? I said, I've got a lass who's pregnant. She went, well, I would have visited you, wouldn't I? And I just thought, you selfish. Said, like, I'm going to leave a pregnant wife out to deal with it and bring her own kid up because you wanted me to go and do something like that. And I realised then, I thought, even my family aren't even for me. They're all for themselves. And then when you don't have the reputation anymore, your friends take the mick out of you, your family take the mick out of you. They think you're a mug, and they no longer want you anymore. And that's why I realised they all just wanted me round because I was a nutter and I had a reputation, so they could all use my name. And so I dropped everybody out.
Yeah, getting used. That's the scary thing. Is so many people get used and they don't realise it until it's too late. Yeah. But at least you've realised that, which is a good thing. You're still young to plan for the future. I know you don't like planning, but just keeping ahead and doing what you can do. Live your best life. It can be difficult, especially in this environment, but fair play for your change, brother. Would you like to finish up on anything, Shane?
No, just, you can change. You know what I mean? And I was the worst. I was described, and I'm not saying this to pick myself up because I'm not, but I'm just making a point. As I was described as one of the 6 most dangerous prisoners in the UK. And for me to go from that to where I am now, if I can do it, you can do it. You just got to put your mind into it. You've just got to think, I've had enough of this, no way. I want to prove people wrong. I want to do this, I'm going to do that. And just try a totally different life. Biggest mistake for me is wasting all that life in jail. When you finally want to change your life, you've messed your life up that much. You're not educated. You've never had a job. You give yourself a criminal record longer than your arm, so it's harder to get a job. When you finally do change, it's 10 times harder for you. And so it's just, do you know what I mean? It's just hard. It's just, you don't want to be at that point where you regret your life. You don't want to be at that point where you're sitting there thinking, oh no, why didn't I just do this all that time back? And you can do it right now. You know, if you're in prison, you can get out of prison and decide on that day, I'm not going back, sack all this. I've got my mum, I've got my dad to look after, and, you know, and think of what you do to them. You know, I didn't realise that my mum used to go upstairs and cry. You know, you think you're in jail, think of yourself. But you've got to remember, you've got a mum who loves you, and on them special days when she's even all them other parents talking about my son opened his Christmas presents, and you're stuck in a jail and she's not seeing you. How do you think that feels to them? It's crazy. And when I was doing this, and it is one for people who love the money, is I was doing this course, and one of the questions they ask you in the course is, if you were to give your child a choice, have £20 million on Christmas Day, or have your dad for Christmas, or have your daddy with you? Which one do you think the kid's always going to choose? And it's always going to be your dad. So when you're stuck in jail for 15, 20 years, missing 15, 20 years of your children's lives, remember that they always chose to be with you. So as a parent, why can't you choose to be with them? Instead of taking your risks, and in your risk, especially when you're selling drugs, destroying other kids and destroying other families while you're at it. Because that's another thing I disagree with. You always hear people on the streets, so I'm carried away, but you always hear people on the streets, don't you, about criminal, that baghead, he does this, burgles houses. I would never harm a child, I would never do this to a woman. But see, drug dealers, no, they don't realise they do that every single day. Not directly, but they're doing it. Destroying families, destroying kids and having a good upbringing because the mum's full of drugs, and destroying society. But it's okay because I'm not directly doing it, but your actions are causing that. So you're hating bagheads because they're going around burgling, and you call them scumbags. yet they're bagheads because you were putting that gear on the street to make them bagheads in the first place. And that's what, anyway.
But that's deluded mind thinking as well, where you've got that mindset where you're ready to kill. Like drug dealers have got that mindset where they're just willing to make money, thinking they want to provide for their family, not realising the destruction they're causing behind the scenes. It's just that some people wake up, like every drug dealer I've ever knew, people who were active, they never get anywhere. Yeah. And that's just facts. I've spoke to the biggest drug lords on the planet, some guys, and they'll tell you the same, they end up fucking skint. Yeah. Like, you spoke earlier, you want to be a gangster, but the real gangsters are the one with suits that fucking sit behind the scenes making their money. And life is a weird thing, but do you know what, brother? For coming on today and telling your story, Shane, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing what you do for the future.
Yeah, thank you.
God bless you, brother.
Right, God bless.
You've got to watch this man, because what he's saying is spot on. Do you know what I mean? Everything this man went through, years in jail, finding God, and the people that are around you, and I see it all the time. You've got mothers, and I know fathers as well, that get their children on drugs specifically, so then they can get their habit fed by their children. Do you know what I mean? And I ain't going to go too much into it, and I'm not going to name or shame anyone. But, I've got on, because I do a lot of recording, as you all know, and I've got mothers turning up to drug dealers, and it always leads to the same people, the same families, because that's what it is families, yeah? And that families have just got the privileges of keeping their businesses afloat, looking respectable within the community, and all out. Could go right into it, and split this, it's crazy, the mentality of how people, and the thing is, like I said, them 3 girls, that got stabbed, everyone's rioting, everyone's marching, but all the children that have been killed and decimated, and families decimated by drugs, and not one riot, not one march, not one anything. Do you know what I mean? Because you've been profaned in that you've been groomed to make it acceptable. But as he said, it goes on every day, and I've got videos upon videos upon videos. And if you ensure what it does, and I keep shouting, and I keep showing people, and again, you got, again, look, over 9 pages, yeah, drugs in schools. 1-year-old son died. 23-year-old baby died, yeah. We're talking children, kids, yeah. What are you doing about the drug dealers within your communities, the legends? Because when they got knives pressed up against pregnant women, I've got that as well, they don't give a monkeys, you know what I mean? Give me the money or that's it, county lines turning up at mothers' houses, threatening the mum or the dad, whatever, because their son's got such a habit or got too much too much drug debt, that they're turning up on people's doorsteps and they can't do nothing. They're isolated. Again, it's that isolation thing, the way they isolate the profane. I'll just scroll through this and then you can sort of semi-see this. But that's what it's all about, And in society today, drugs rules and controls everything. And how do you go up against a cartel? Because that's what you got in your town. You know what I mean? It's a Masonic cartel, And like I said, it's monolithic, but they're killing people in the background that you don't even know about, you know what I mean? They're giving them hot shots, all that misery and everything you see, the homeless, the drug addicts that are running around your town trying to feed their habit. Like I said, when you get burgled, it's not a burglar, it's a sick person, yeah? I don't mean sick, like whatever. I want to bet he's sick because he's feeling he's feeling that withdrawal symptoms, do you know what I mean? And he's ill. Do you know what I mean? What did the government do? They get that, not what's that called? That green stuff, They give them that, and they know it gives them a double habit because the government ain't there to help you. They're not there to help anyone. The doctors, the nurses, everyone is it's a Masonic system built by Freemasons, and it's not there to help anyone. It's there to keep the chaos going. So they're always the solution to it. Do you know what I mean? So they're always needed. Do you know what I mean? Within society. I was the green stuff is methadone. I'll let this video run because it is a good video. I meant to upload this a while back, you know, but my throat's gone anyway. I'm going to run this and then I'm going to turn it off and I'll go back to this. I'm 3 hours in anyway, but I'll let this be the last one, or I might just run that one I said about at the beginning. I'll let that run. Oh shit. But this is the thing, you know, they you know, with the drugs within society, yeah, all these children that you can now see on my forum, you can go and see it for yourselves on my forum. All these kids been killed over the centuries and the decades. And I don't care if your kids are in prams now or in their cots, as I've said before. You know, by the time they get to 14, 15, 16, they're going to be influenced by people within your community that are paid to do that. And I'm on about adults, yeah, not children. Other children will be there, yeah, there'd be Lewises of Freemasons, yeah. Again, it's another story, but the point is there'll be adults there, yeah, that will influence them, yeah, and to there get them on drugs or get them using them for drugs because they can go out and supply people and come back with the money for them to have a better life, you know. And that's what it is. And the people at the top echelons are not involved because you won't get near their people. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, who protects them? You go after a drug dealer. Well, first thing he does is ring the police. And the police are going to protect him. They say, you can't do that, it's an assault. Do you know what I mean? Even though he's got your child on drugs, and for the next 30 to 40 years, they're going to be homeless, street, you know, living in the jail, having no life at all, yeah? Or they're going to give him a hot shot and kill him anyway, do you know what I mean? Whatever. Do you see what I mean? But you try and go after a drug dealer within your community, the first people that'll turn up to protect him are the Masonic Freemasons, because it keeps the chaos going. Do you see what I mean? So we must have drug dealers within the community because it's good for us and bad for them. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, listen to the rest. Always looking rich, always being the rich, do you know what I mean? And all they do is keep putting all the profane in jail, do you know what I mean? Keeping their probation officers, do you know what I mean? Because if you clear up all the drug dealers, yeah, what crime is there? There ain't no crime, do you see what I mean? Because there's no, you know what I mean? You start taking the businesses out as well, the important ones, yeah, the ones that are in support of the dealers, blah, blah, that don't ever get their collars felt because they're Freemasons, right? You start forgetting them. Imagine the money that they could take from them. Do you know what I mean? Their houses, their cars, their fucking, do you know what I mean? You know, and I'm talking about major businesses, not little fucking farty fart little businesses. Do you know what I mean? But these are cartels. Like I said, these are syndicates that are in and they're paid wealth and good money every month, you know what I mean, to keep that system in place. Do you know what I mean? And it's the Masonic Brotherhood, you know. You know, I was like here at the Masonic Lodge in the Cliff Hotel. I got it perfect. You know what I mean? Guy, drug dealer, pulls up on his push bike. There's big, massive cars. You know, they're big Jeeps and, you know, transporters, SUVs, whatever you call them. Do you know what I mean? All in the car park. He pulls up, get his drugs and fucks off on his push bike. Do you know what I mean? But he can't afford nothing. But he's gone in that community. I sat at a table at a party. You know, again. There's a girl of 14, whatever, they took her up the pier, you know what I mean? They told them, do you do crack, cocaine and all that sort of stuff? And I'm thinking, fucking hell, do you know what I mean? No one's saying nothing, no one, do you know what I mean? And you've got like 6 dealers on there looking respectable men, you know, old men, 14-year-old girl, they took her up the pier anyway. Don't know what happened to her, whether she got addicted or whatever. This was going back 20 years ago, you know what I mean? 25, 30 years ago. And the mum come round, I remember that. The mum's going, what are you doing here? Where's everyone? Do you know what I mean? I go, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Blum, blum, where's my daughter? You know, I said, oh, she went up the pier. And that's all I said, you know. But that time, they turned up there thinking I was the influence, do you know what I mean? But it wasn't nothing to do with me, do you know what I mean? But they put it on to me because that's the way the system works with Freemasons. But they took her away. I don't know if she became an addict. I could find out, I suppose. But that's a true story, you know. They're sitting there going, do you take crack cocaine or a 14-year-old and drag her up the pier? These are grown men, you know what I mean? Dealers, you know. Madness. And the other stories I've got just from other people and what the hell's going on. But they interfere and affect everyone. There's no one. And no one's doing anything about it. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's all good. I'll deal drugs to your families all day long. You lot just keep shh. You know what I mean? But when someone gets stabbed up, you're up in arms. Do you know what I mean? Dum. Where's the logic? I don't see it. Do you see what I mean? I can't see the logic. Your communities have been attacked all day long by these freak masons that are drug dealers within your communities. You know, I've got them talking about, you know, bathtubs of bicarbonated soda and that, and cocaine being stirred up in bathtubs to sell crack on the streets, you know what I mean, within Great Yarmouth, do you know what I mean? The doormen, you know, down King Street were fucking like 1% bikers and all this sort of crap, you know. That's just talking around in general, my town, you know, and it's the same families all the time, the same names, the same families, and it never changes, do you know what I mean? Because it's passed down and willed down from generation to generation. You know what I mean? And no one does anything because the law protects them. You know what I mean? And that's the biggie, innit? You know what I mean? The Lord protects them. Because if they get investigated, they're shut down or nothing's said anyway. Leave him alone, he's untouchable. Shh, leave him alone. Shh, you know what I mean? We're not investigating them. And if they are investigated, like I said, their police friends will tell them they're being investigated and then they get the backhander for it, you know? And it's about, oh, so long as I get that 5,000, I can then buy my daughter a car or whatever they need to buy. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy. Anyway, my profane friends, like I said, just reading this part of my forum here and still the crickets are going, or however they chirp. I don't know how to do the sound effects, but look at this, look. 14-year-old girl died from a drug overdose. You know what I mean? In Surrey, look, you see? She's just been stabbed. She just got stabbed. Do you know what I mean? Stabbed, but nothing's said. You know, 1-year-old son died of drug overdose. You know what I mean? 11-year-old boy who lives in home tested positive for cocaine. Been stabbed. Couple facing homicide charge after their 1-year-old son is found dead. You know what I mean? Bang. And there you go. They're all victims. Everyone in this post is victim. Remember, all these people, all these children were surrounded by adults, yeah? Where they're surrounded by adults or had an influence by adults to take the drugs, yeah? Like there's one post I do believe I go to it in this video where the nanny, who was a drug dealer, a nanny, and most of these are old people as well, you know, we're talking, you know, generations here, you know what I mean, of drug dealers, yeah? And we're talking from youngsters that are doing all the dirty work to the older generation that are using these youngsters, yeah? And it's just generational, and done by families that, you know, are strong within your communities. But that's another story. But, you know, the nanny draped a flag over the coffin, do you know what I mean? And then carried on dealing drugs, you know, into crazy. 15-year-old boy, you know what I mean? Died in an alleyway. How about that, eh? I don't see anyone marching for these people. No one. Shame on the British. Shame. Do you see what I'm saying? You know, 14-year-old girl dies from an overdose. Mother gave her meth and heroin. That's her mother. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. That methadone gives them double dose, you know, a double habit. So they're not just addicted to the heroin, they're addicted to the methadone as well. Do you know what I mean? But like I said, most of the parents, yeah, I'm not saying most of the parents, let me get that wrong. Some parents, yeah, that has no moral compass because of the drugs they're on, try to get their children on it because then they're grafters and then they're, you know, obviously it gives them money. Do you know what I mean? And that's what's happening. You've got whole families, you know, dads selling drugs to their kids or kids selling drugs to their dads even, you know, all different type. You know, I'm not talking shit. None of you know, or anyone who's listening to this now, know I'm not talking shit. It's there in black and white, you know. You can go in all day long, you know what I mean? Look. Girl, 14, dies after being injected by a 26-year-old man. You see what I mean? It's always the older people, do you see what I mean, that are doing it. You know, the adults, you know what I mean? And it's adults that are not responsible enough to be, do you see what I'm saying? There you go, look. You know what I mean? She got stabbed. She just didn't get stabbed with a knife. She got stabbed with a needle. You see what I mean? 14-year-old. And then you got the dealers around your town with all their businesses and all their great adventures and setting up just because they want to look like heroes amongst you in your community. Do you know what I mean? They're shooting each other for the privilege to deal drugs to your children. Do you know what I mean? And this is what you got. Not one march, not one protest. Amy Winehouse died drug overdose. The amount of stars, you know, crazy. Sorry, I got a bit of a blocked nose. You know, as yet another girl dies of suspected meow meow overdose. Do you know what I mean? It all comes here, no matter what you think. You know what I mean? And the people are just doing it so they can live well, you know what I mean? Mau, see? You don't realise that, my profane friends, you know? It goes on and on. Leah Betts, you know, what, that poor girl, how many years ago was that? Do you see what I mean? What since then, that's the same people, believe it or not. If you do the research, nothing's changed. It's just gone up the pyramid. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got these gangs, of people that are bouncers, that are big doormen. This is another clown fucking thing about you profane, is that you know the drug dealers run the doors, you know they run the clubs, you know they run the pubs, and you go have a good night to your children. Do you know what I mean? Then they're coming back with habits, and then they're stealing your money or they're outbugging or going to jail, and you think it's normal. It's not. It's not normal. There's nothing normal about it. When are you going to start doing something about it? That's what I'd like to know. Like I said, I've got plenty of, videos, and go look at your own dealers in your own towns and see the mothers stroll up with the kids in their prams, do you know what I mean? Getting their fucking bags, do you know what I mean? And then you get the same drug dealers slag, this is what the guy was referring to, and I've got that as well, all in sorts of screenshots, They go, who's this, who stole this or whatever, or trying the door on my granny's house, or trying this on my, my mum's, house or whatever. And you get all the drug dealers, yeah, scumbag, yeah, what a fuck it, you know what I mean? All slagging off, and I'm thinking, you were the drug dealer, they wouldn't be there now or doing any of what you're fucking, if you hadn't supplied them and got them addicted in the first place. And that includes your dads, not just you know what I mean? We're talking about, I'm talking about second and third generation people jumping on these posts going, yeah, what a scumbag, she's a fucking this, or he's a that, do you know what I mean? And I'm thinking, well, they wouldn't be that way if you weren't dealing your drugs in the community. Do you know what I mean? Boy, 6 people between the ages of 14 and 37 arrested. You know what I mean? There you go. Anyway, my preferred, look, this is the one. What a hero, look. Oh, you bloody ninja. Wait there, my profane foot. Look. How do I do this? Back to consent. Oh, I see. Save and exit. I don't know what that means. Oh, it's not. I'm already a subscriber. Oh, I lied. I'm not a subscriber, but I want to see the post. Oh, baby. Wait, see if I can keep my finger on it. And then, oh, that's not going to let me do it, man. But she went after him, obviously. Look. Recklessly tracked down those responsible for kidnap and murder of her 20-year-old daughter Karen in the story of the hit Hollywood film Taken. Do you see what I mean? But there's parents out there that are doing things, yeah? There's a dad here, I don't know which post he's in, and I called him a hero. But this is the thing, see, and this is where, look, hero dad kills drug dealer, yeah? Right? So he killed a drug dealer for killing his son, but he goes to jail. Do you see what I mean? And that's what I put in there, but it's crazy, isn't it? You know what I mean? See? Oh, it's bloody the mirror again. Typical Masonic mirror. Do you know what I mean? How you can win the war on drugs, look. Ah, the bloody mirror again. Sorry about that, my profane friends. But there is posts there. I did have a membership. I should have screenshotted it when I had to join, actually, to get the bloody... But you see what I'm saying? My point, you see what I mean? That, 3 young girls got stabbed by a man, yeah? But all day long, every day, you've got 12, 13-year-old boys, 1-year-old kids, do you know what I mean? 14, everything, yeah? Every day, and you're not saying nothing. And if you're sitting in your house now, whether you're a granddad, a grandnanny, a dad, a mum, a sister or a brother, it doesn't matter what it is, you see your little children running about, your cousins, your nephews, if you love them, these people ain't going to love your children. They don't care about your families. They care about their own families, the drugs they have to supply, the drugs they supply to the families that they don't care about. They just care about having the money, So the choice is, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Kids and children on meth, kids and children, crystal meth users, you see? You know what I mean? It's everywhere, and the people doing it are the actual legends and the business owners and the respectable people that sit in the background. You don't even know about them. That's the thing. But they're heroes. They're always in the papers, like this, that, and the other. Crazy, Look, 11-year-old cocaine overdose, plus many others. Boy 11 treated in hospital after overdose on cocaine. Age 17 been treated in hospital for drug or alcohol misuse over the last 5 years. 56 were admitted for acute intoxication, while others were treated for the effects of cannabis or nicotine. You see what I mean? 1 12-year-old has been treated for alcohol dependency and addicted to painkillers and cannabis. I don't see anyone marching for these poor children. You know what I mean? But there you go, my profane friends. Like I said, you're taking street, you lesbos, yeah, you're taking the street lamps down, great, you know what I mean? But start, and you're jumping out on these paedophiles, you're setting them up. I don't see anyone setting up these drug dealers or anything else in the community, naming and shaming them and getting them on camera. Hey? Anyway, my profane friends, have a great day. You know what I mean? That's what make me sad, really. You know what I mean? Heroin victim Hannah, who's this? Everyone knows I'm right. I'm not lying, am I? Look. Drug gang, 28 members drowned. Heroin Howard, Wales. This is in Wales, look. I don't know who she was, look. Oh, except. To the drugs that killed her has inspired a new foundation to combat the growing dangers of heroin addiction in West Wales, yeah? But the thing is, from 3 to 13 years between 2006 to 2008. But when they do this, the people that front all these things, we're going to help the drug addicts and all that, it's the same people. They want the control of it, so they control that. Do you know what I mean? So they can shush up anything that could possibly made, that could cripple them or whatever, do you know what I mean? So they look for so they want to control it. Like, for instance, paedophiles want to control the social services, you know what I mean? Because then that gives them access to the victims, yeah? And it also, anyone who's speaking out, they can shush them up. So they also want to be the psychiatrists, they want to be the doctors, you see what I mean? They want to be the policemen, and that's how the shush up works all the time, that's how Savile got away with it. You know what I mean? Because if you hold an importance, when you see a chief inspector stand there, do you know what I mean? That's what you think, and you think he's honest, you think he's loyal, and he's got his best interest for you. No, he's hiding a Masonic apron behind that uniform, and that's where his loyalties are, to his brothers. And it doesn't matter if the brother is a Satanist, a drug dealer, do you see what I mean? It doesn't matter. His loyalty is to that brother, regardless of what he is, and he's going to keep his secret in his chest, in his breast. You know what I mean? I've got hiccups, sorry. But there you go, I can't keep going on all day long about it, And there you go. People go, don't you care if you're going to get killed? They've been threatening to kill me for years. If they kill me, that's okay. I'll accept that, yeah? Do you know what I mean? But accept the repercussions of that when you're sitting in your cell with your hands in your head, looking for a conspiracy to murder. And that's the thing, you see, these people that have gang stalked me, these drug dealing perverts, yeah, you know what I mean, they'll be grassing each other up left, right and centre because none of them want to go down. Do you know what I mean? Because that's when the loyalty's cut, when there's no brotherhood or anything. You know what I mean? I'm not gone down. Some of these gang stalking drug dealers, these G travellers, were grassing each other when they got caught for heroin before. Do you see what I mean? They were grassing each other, got the statements. You know what I mean? They were put online anyway. But do you see what I'm saying? So there's no loyalty in there in the game. But if if I get killed, the only people that have killed me is Gypsy G travellers, and that's as simple as that. The Masonic Lodge here, you know what I mean? I'm talking about the Cliff Hotel and the Royal Assembly Rooms. You know what I mean? They've had meetings about me multiple times. They'll have another meeting. I'm sure that ain't the last meetings they've ever had of me. Do you know what I mean? There's going to be plenty more in the future. But where the death sentence come from is the top league fucking drug dealers that are Freemasons within my own town. Do you know what I mean? And that, like I said, you don't think they want to shush me up? Shh, of course they fucking do. But it comes with a big consequence, let's put it that way. But, that's another story, my profane friends. But, it ain't me who's going to take up the torch. There'll be others, do you know what I mean, that are going to take up the torch, yeah? And maybe the profane villagers in this town and city just might start doing something about them, do you know what I mean? Because they've had 30 to 40, maybe 50 years, yeah, from what I can gather, just the story I could tell anyway, that they've had reign and roost over destroying my town and destroying my the surrounding areas. Do you know what I mean? And it's all linked in, And like I said, I'm a fucking good storyteller. What do you reckon, my profane friends? Anyway, have a great day. Remember, I love you. And all you little Freemasons out there that thought you had me screwed over, ain't going to be the story now. Do you know what I mean? Because whatever, this is what it works on is reputation, yeah? And destroying your shit all around you, yeah? Destroying everything you've got. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm going to do is do the reputation on you guys, do you know what I mean? And destroy your reputation in years to come, because people are going to know who you are and what you are. Do you see what I mean? Whether you're going to murder me for that or not, I don't know, but the people who will carry that torch are the conspiracy theorists, yeah, and they're going to be able to point and fingers and show your faces anywhere and everywhere of what you are. Do you know what I mean? And you ain't going to be able to walk about in this town without anyone knowing who you are and what you fucking done. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing with it. You're going to live with that. You know what I mean? I still live with it today. But you don't, because you're all sit there, you're unknown, ain't you? You are the unknown touchables. You know what I mean? Your nation of people, your tribe, knows no bounds in corruption in this town. Anyway, have a great day, my profane friends. And remember, if I'm murdered or I disappear, it's the Freemasons in this town. And look for my nonce pervert files. Well, you'll soon find them anyway. It'll come to light, you know what I mean? There's nothing here. It's not here anyway. But like I said, just watch out for my pervert files that will be coming out in my death or disappearance. Have a great day, my profane friends. Oh yeah, if I disappear, just know that I'm getting tortured really badly by these Freemasons, do you know what I mean? I'll be getting tortured so bad you wouldn't believe the things they can do to a human person, you know what I mean? Well, when will we stop them though? That's the thing, isn't it? And that is, isn't it? When will we stop these freaktards? Do you know what I mean? Now, I'm going to stop it there, right? But I will, because it's a 4-hour video, do you know what I mean? That was 15 minutes, yeah. So I'm not going to play this video, and then I've done it all then up to there. So I'll just play this, which I wanted to play in the beginning anyway.
And just wanted to record, because there was a lot of thoughts on my mind today. Yesterday, I saw this video on someone had posted on social media, and it was pretty harrowing actually to watch this video, and I couldn't actually watch it. I think I managed to watch it in clips, but I really couldn't watch the video. And anyone who's been following who you know, watches these videos or blogs, you'll know, you know, I refer to these people, the Freemasons. Richard, you'll see it's there, you know, I call him quite openly a paedophile, and as they harass me and quite brutally at times, you know, I have to say, you know, and I react and saying for a long time now, he's a paedophile, I've been saying it for ages. But I think it affected me a lot when I saw the video, because it brings home the reality of the situation, and it's not a joke. It's really not a joke. And when you see another human being, kind of as I did, it really brings it home to you. At least it did to me. And it took me back to when I met this guy, and this whole gang of people in 2017. And I remember quite clearly and quite vividly, it will stay with me for the rest of my life. I remember the guy, doing all the stuff about the mind. I've been working on the book now about the mind. I'm finishing it, basically putting it in. It's all done. I'm just proofreading it, and doing all the stuff that they do with the mind. But I remember, and that's in a way that's been easier to talk about.